Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It is the MotorMotion E Series, and it's Trak Racer TCR Cup time. We are going into round 5, halfway point through our American leg. It's round 5, and it's Watkins Glen in New York State. Beautiful place to come and enjoy 39,000 crowd capacity at this fantastic 5.5 kilometer circuit. And it is the full course here today. We've got the chute, we've got the boot, we've got the toe, we've got the heel. It's all there and ready to go racing with these TCR cars, the Mazda 3 Group 4s. And what a race we have in for us today. 2 lobbies, both stacked, and an interesting switch up of teams for this one. Lobby 2 especially is going to see our champions battle it out in both the teams and the driver championship. We're very much looking forward to that. Lobby 1 is going to be exciting as well. But it is Watkins Glen, a stunning circuit. Watch out for that bus stop chicane. Watch out for the tire wear because it's going to be severe at a circuit like this. We're going to go racing very, very soon, and we're going to look forward to it. We've got our usual crew in the commentary box once again, and we'll be taking you through the race information in a few short moments to kick off what's going to be a fantastic round 5. It's key that the drivers get it right this time. Let's jump into it. Okay, so back in the broadcasting and commentary booth, it is myself, George Cooke, joined by the legendary Nick Pautasso and our pit lane reporter in Andrew Scott. Nick, lovely to have you back, and this is going to be an exciting round because Watkins Glen is a special place. It is a place of tire wear. It's a place of strategy. You've got to get it absolutely right, and there are some key overtaking opportunities that can lead you directly into a barrier. So how are you feeling about round 5?
Howdy George, howdy Andrew, howdy everyone that's tuning into the MotorMotion East Series YouTube stream, and welcome along to the premiere stream as well, whether you're watching this back. Yes, Watkins Glen, it is a very interesting track. It's very well known, has very historic moments about it, a lot of history behind the track as well. And like you said, with especially when you're coming up towards the inner loop with the bus chicane, it's all about just trying to get that corner perfect while you set yourself up for the outer loop, then heading into the boot section, because that section becomes really crucial in the part of the qualifying lap, and especially during the race as well, whether you're trying to extend your stint on the tire set, whether you're trying to push for that undercut, push for the overcut. It's all about getting that section right, because one little slip up on that section of track and you lose all of that time. So I'm very excited to see a lot of strategies brought upon the field tonight, especially with the likes of our Lobby 2. But here at Lobby 1, we've got ourselves some very good contenders that are going to be fighting it out for the win here this afternoon.
Yep, absolutely right. We know that there's a couple of strategies in play today. We'll talk through those in a few moments, but first a quick word from our pit lane reporter, Andrew Scott. It's a pretty long track out there, 5.5 kilometers. Are you going to be doing lots of steps today? You're just going to be hanging out in that lovely pit lane?
Yeah, I'll be hanging out in the box with you guys again, I think, guys. Yeah, it's a very long walk around this track. But yeah, g'day everyone. G'day, boys. If you thought Laguna was a tyre killer last round, wait till you see this one, guys. This one is also a tyre killer. It's good to be over here on the east coast of the USA, and at this track, one of my favourites. It's a technical track, isn't it? It's really hard to hook up a perfect lap around here. But we have that killer of a death chicane as well, the bus stop here at Watkins Glen. I believe there's been a driver's brief that's been given to the drivers that they must yield if you're not in front of the car. So if you're going for a move, or if you're defending and you're not the lead car, you're going to have to yield and fall in behind. That's the briefing. So hopefully the drivers all stick to that, because there could be some really dicey moments through that bus stop today.
Absolutely. And then, of course, right after the bus stop, you've got the lovely right-hander there. Plenty of room for overtaking, so don't need to be too opportunistic into the bus stop chicane, that's for sure. So let's take a look at the race information for today. Of course, 23 laps at sunrise here at Watkins Glen. Going to make for a very beautiful race out on track. We're going to go from a little bit dark into the bright sunlight as the sun comes up over this beautiful circuit. Of course, racing tyres today, everything is available, but you need to make sure that you use your soft tires at least once. That's going to play into strategy in a massive, massive way through this, and I think we've got a number of surprises potentially on the grid for ourselves. And as usual, tuning prohibited and brake bias is allowed to be adjusted. But Watkins Glen, and we've been talking about it already, there's a lot of space. It's a big, big circuit, and those corners that you have there, absolutely key to get it right, because there's only 11 of them. Very Monza-esque, very Laguna Seca-esque. But in the difference between that and Laguna Seca's got basically no long straights. Whereas here, we've got a couple of big long straights. We've got the pit straight, and then of course, after the 90, up the hill and down towards the bus stop chicane, a big long straight there. Plenty of overtaking opportunities through that section, and utilize that slipstream, save a bit of fuel, slip in behind another car and get yourself ready as well. Another little fun fact here, back in the 70s, there was a big concert here, a very big one. 600,000 people attended to see the Grateful Dead, the band, and the Allman Brothers at the 1973 Summer Jam. So this is not just a race circuit, it is a destination for everything awesome, in my opinion. So let's take a look. We've got Lobby 1 and Lobby 2 coming up for your viewing pleasure. We're going to start off with Lobby 1, and we'll jump into the qualifying results, which have just come across our desk with Nick in just a moment. A couple of housekeeping items before we get to that. Go to www.motormotioneseries.wordpress.com for all the news, articles, sign up, registration, standings, the whole caboodle. Go and check us out there. We're also on Facebook, where you can get involved with the paddock and the main group. Go and give us a like over there. And of course, you're watching here on the MotorMotion E-Series YouTube channel. Give us a like, a subscribe, and a follow. Tell us your predictions in chat. Get involved. We love reading the comments as the broadcast continues. Right, let's talk Lobby 1, Nick, because Lobby 1 is slightly devoid of some of the top teams out there, which means the Lobby 2 is pretty stacked up, but we have some incredibly fast drivers, and qualifying has just come in. So let's go through the results now for Lobby 1. Over to you, Nick.
Well, let's rock and roll, as you said, with the attendance of that concert back over those 60 years ago. So we're ready to rock and roll here at Lobby 1, and it is the man that is leading the way in this Lobby 1 qualifying session. It is Scott Taylor for Gridline Racing, his first pole position in Season 3 of 2024. Just ahead, behind him is Matthew Johnson. Very two close contenders. Both contenders are going to be very strong here tonight. We know these guys very well. We know Scott Taylor's one for tyre preservation and the fuel management, as well as Matthew Johnson. But we saw last time out at Laguna Seca, Matthew Johnson wasn't too kind on his tyres, and he almost lost that position to the man that's starting behind him in P3, Mark Pacheco for PCR. Luke Stone in P4 as well, so he's going to be another strong contender for the victory here tonight, as well as Jeremy Crow in P5. So we have two PCRs in the top 5. This could be the chance for these guys to move themselves up the grid in both the teams and the Drivers' Championship. Troy Britnell, his best qualifying, is starting ahead of Dean Vanderzen, so that's a big surprise there. So Lightning Motorsport bringing a really good package in their Mazda 3 to get themselves inside the top 6. A very strong effort there by Troy's team in Lightning Motorsport. Then we had Dean Vanderzen in 7th, Shane Addard rounding up the top 8 for Kung Fu Racing, the Super Sub, filling in for Shannon Jones and filling in that seat, doing a really good job with Mitch Collin for CRT, Collins Racing Team, in 9th place with Colin Fee. It's a bit of a handful, it's a bit of a mouthful to say Mitch Collin and Colin Fee. So keep up with us, ladies and gentlemen. So it's Colin Fee inside the top 10 with another Kung Fu Racing starting in that area. Scott's teammate in Michael Daly in 11th place, Dave Chucky, making his return back into the Trak Racer TCR Cup starting in 12th place. Matthew Hatton and Chris Patajak, who missed out, unfortunately, with an engine failure, with a components failure last time out at Laguna Seca, but he's here, he's ready to race, but unfortunately that damage to his car must have really impacted him, must have hurt him to get himself out of that qualifying session. He starts 14th and last place. So, gentlemen, if it's time for that prediction, that early parts of the prediction, as well in the chat, let us know who is going to be your top 3 and who is going to take out victory here tonight. I'm going to go for a bit of an interesting one here. I think based on the performance that we've seen throughout the whole year, and I think just outright pace, trying some different strategies, I'm going to go for a bit of a underdog here. I'm going to go for Mark Pacheco to have a go at taking a victory here tonight. It's probably his first victory, if he can get his first victory here at MotorMotion E-Series. I'm going to go for the PCR driver, who has been leading the way ahead of his more experienced teammate in Jeremy Crow, but I have a good feeling that the Spaniard is going to get himself right up there inside the top 3 and fight out for that win.
That's a good call there. I like that a lot because Pacheco has been very impressive out on track. Just needs to get his strategy absolutely right, get a few good overtakes on his belt. My money today is on Matthew Joinson. He's been strong all season long, and he's only got one car to overtake to get into that lead spot. So we'll see if he can get past Scott Taylor and get himself up into the top spot. That's going to be my prediction today. Let us know in chat, but I think we are ready. The cars are on the grid. It is time to go and watch Lobby 1's interesting race. So let's get out there and let's get this started in just a moment. Okay, here we are on the grid. 3 lights are on, 4 lights are on, 5 lights are on. We wait for the false grid start. Everyone getting it right this time. No madman on the grid. Like last time at Laguna Seca. Good launch there for Pacheco. He might even have a chance up the inside line with Matthew Joinson. He's just gotten ahead though, so Matthew Joinson holds on for now. Scott Taylor's got a good launch, and Luke Stone has found himself up in the P3 already. But then Luke Stone has had a great run through turn 1. Matthew Joinson has been pushed out wide on the outside as we head up the hill for the first time. So Luke Stone will be in a prime spot on the inside line heading up towards bus stop chicane. This chaos is letting Scott Taylor get a fantastic start in this race, and we nearly went 3 wide for a second there. Matthew Joinson has lost yet another position. Mark Pacheco uses the slipstream and the good run that he had through turn 1. Into bus stop with chicane we go. So then Matthew Joinson will have to settle for P4 right now. He's got Jeremy Crow just behind him. What a start for the PCR boys. They're gaining positions everywhere. Best of the rest, though, at the moment, Luke Stone up to P2. Fantastic stuff for them. Down to the chute. Tricky braking zone, this one. Got to get it right. Birdman, and that's Jeremy Crow on the inside line for Matthew Joinson. He'll have a run up the inside. Scott Taylor's had a bad one, though. He's had a very bad one through the chute. So up the toe and the heel we go. And that is Luke Stone gone from 4th to 1st in the first half of this first lap in round 5. Fantastic stuff from the Scotsman. Might be a little bit of a tyre difference there. We will see. Scott Taylor's now got a bit of work to do. They're heading through the last part of the circuit. 3 or 4 corners to go until we finish off lap 1. Matthew Joinson still trying to hold on to P4. Jeremy Crow has managed to pick up P5, but they've got Troy Britnell in P6 right now, Dean van der Zaan in P7, and Mitch Collin in P8. Luke Stone, what an absolutely brilliant start from this man right here. He is putting some pace on. He's got the foot to the floor, likely on the soft tire at the moment, given that pace difference. Scotty will have to settle for P2 in this race, and Pacheco P3 ahead of Matthew Joinson. Predictions maybe starting to come true. None of us predicted Luke Stone at this stage. Let's have a little look. They're going to go side by side into the 90. Oh, Scott Taylor's getting overtaken. He's forced to the outside. Through goes Mark Pacheco, and he's going to be under a lot of pressure from Jeremy Crow too. What a start to this race.
Oh my goodness, what a great start there by the crazy Scotsman and Luke Stone, running up from 4th to 1st place. We saw in that opening stage of that opening lap, we saw him go around the outside of Matthew Joinson, and that really helps you because when you pinch yourself on the inside of the corner, you really compromise the exit speed. So Luke Stone took full advantage and went swooping around the outside, and in this section here, through the bus stop, he got himself a great launch that set himself up all the way into the outer loop and then heading into the boot for that first time. So Luke Stone doing a fantastic job there. The PCR boys, these guys are here to fight. Pacheco in P2, and then we have Birdman challenging Scott Taylor for P3, and he's got a good run coming out of turn 8 out of the chute. He's going to try and hold it around the outside. It's not really the best spot to go for an outside move there because as we see here, the camber is it has a huge effect around this track here. You need to hug that inside line because that's where you get the best momentum. But it looks like Jeremy Crow's got himself a strong switchback move there. He's going to go up from 4th to 3rd if he can get this move down into the heel at turn 10. He gets the move done nice and early, and that is PCR by 2nd and 3rd. Well done to those boys. But Mark Pacheco right ahead in P2 is challenging Luke Stone. And gentlemen, this is kind of like putting on a PCR masterclass because these are the top 3 are the best movers and shakers, but the bottom 4th and 5th place are the biggest losers. So the man that started on pole and the man that started in P2 are just on the fringes of the top 5.
Yeah, it makes me think that we've got a couple of medium runners there in Scotty and Matthew Joinson. I feel like they just don't have the pace at the moment, and that can't come down to much else other than a tyre difference, but PCR looking very, very strong. And Pacheco, I mean, that prediction at the start there, Nick, that might actually be a prediction that comes true in the commentary box for possibly the first time this season, because he is on a flyer right now, putting a lot of pressure on Luke Stone, and Luke has made a couple of strategy decisions in the past couple of races that have not gone his way. So he'll be looking to nail his strategy this time. If he can do so, then he's in a prime spot. But look at the slipstream. This is the key thing. Up the hill there and into the bus stop chicane. If you can use that to your advantage, not just for speed, but also for saving just that little bit of fuel, it'll reduce the time you've got in the pit stop as well. These top three, I think, absolutely have to be on the soft tyre at the moment, because they are running away with things already in the 53.3s. Pacheco setting that fastest lap just that previous lap. Then, of course, you've got Matthew Joinson and GLR Scotty, and Joinson has managed to get past Scott Taylor as well, and they're both now falling back into this pack that is starting to evolve from P4 down. Troy Britnell might be having a little look at some point soon.
It looks very daunting on the opening lap there when we were on board with Scott Taylor at the time. You could just see he was just pulling away, and then you saw the rest of the pack going into the bus stop. A whole cluster of Mazda 3s going into that corner for the first time. That would have been absolutely scary if you were looking at your rearview mirror the whole time, because every car was going each way. They were trying to go for the inside mirror, trying to go around the outside. As we see a CRT car run wide, they're taking the NASCAR line on the exit of the boot section there, of the heel section of the boot part of the track. But if our pit lane reporter is there, we're going to head down to our pit reporter Ando Scott. Obviously, Ando, we know the top three might be on a different strategy compared to what we're seeing with Matthew Joinson and Scott Taylor. Well, obviously, can you confirm that the top three are running that softer compound, and potentially Joinson and Scott Taylor are going for a different strategy? Well, looks like we don't have our reporter there, so we'll get back to him very shortly. But we have here Dean Patterson. Oh yeah, go for it.
Sorry guys, mic trouble again. But yeah, I can confirm you are somewhat true there, Spud. The top three definitely on the softs. There's only one driver in the whole top 10 that's chosen mediums. I think you can guess who it is. He's given up.
Sorry, Ando, we're going to cut you off there. We're going to cut you off there. Pacheco's gone into the lead before the bus stop chicane there, but he's run a little bit deep there. It's going to give Luke Stone an opportunity to try and take back that P1, but it's Mark Pacheco that leads this race on lap 4 of 23 with his teammate right behind him, going to challenge Luke Stone for that P2, try and make it a PCR 1-2. But we'll go back to our reporter there. Obviously, a bit of contact there. We're trying to get back to our reporter there, but there's a lot of on-track battles there, Ando, so bear with us. But it is Jeremy Crow trying to get that P2, but Luke Stone just holds on, and it looks like we have a big enough gap there to finally put it back to our pit reporter, Ando. I do apologise there, good sir.
Yeah, it looks like Black Friday's just copped a crippling 3.5-second penalty now too. But yeah, Scotty's the only one on the mediums. He's leaking a bit of oil, but he is significantly better on fuel than everyone else as well. So I think he might be going for a one-stopper here, whereas the leaders are going to be on 2 stops, I'd say.
Interesting to find that out. So that does mean that Matthew Joinson has maybe just not found his pace here just yet, because he's dropped a huge amount, got that massive penalty. We've seen a number around the grid with 1.5-second penalties, so there's a number of places in this circuit where you can crop that up. Bus stop chicane is one of them, through that last couple of sectors there as well. Some runoff on the outside, on the left-hand side, that can really cause you some trouble. Don't run too wide as well at the final corner, because you get that little white line, touch across it, and you'll be in trouble. Matthew Joinson's trying to fight back. Looks like Shane Attard going defensive, did manage to get through because Matthew Joinson was heavily compromised. So there is right now a juice motorsport sandwich going on between the Kung Fu racing cars. They're sitting in P7 and P9, Shane Attard and Colin Fee. Matthew Joinson's got a lot of work to do. They've got Mitch Collin ahead now in P6. Then, of course, we've got Matthew Hatton rounding out our top 10 at the moment. Troy Britnell's moved up to P5 now behind GLR Scotty, who's picked up a 1.5-second penalty. So he's on the mediums. He's losing positions left and right. Now has to serve a 1.5-second penalty. Troy Britnell, that is not the line. Nearly causes a huge accident with the rejoin as well. Luckily, Shane Attard does manage to get through relatively unscathed. That was a close one. And Nick, that's exactly what we're talking about with the problems with bus stop chicane. If you get it all wrong, that could have gone a lot worse there.
Yeah, it just spits the car wide if you just clip too much of the curb. You really have to slow the car down, but also just try and keep as much pace as you can so you can really hook the car onto the left. So as we can see, we have a PCR 1-2, gentlemen. This is the first time we're seeing these boys up front. Lap 5 of 23, mark this as a milestone for PCR racing. And these guys are doing themselves a great job. Different strategies compared to what we're seeing with Scott Taylor. As we can see, Scott Taylor's name tumbling down the order there, all the way into 9th place there. That 1.5-second penalty really cost him. Matthew Johnson, who served a 3.5-second penalty, is up in 7th place. But what is actually interesting as well there, as we heard from our pit reporter in Ando, as we heard, it was only Scott Taylor's on the mediums, and Johnson must be on the soft tires. But I think, like you must have brought it up earlier, George. He's just not switching on the tires. So I wonder what's going on with the Juiced Motorsports. Maybe they've got a little bit too much. The tire pressures are a little bit too high, and they just need to come down a little bit so he can find that maximum grip. But he's not making any inroads. He's in 8th place where he started P2. And you know, as most people would expect, if you're on the soft tire, you would be leading this race compared to the medium runner and Scott Taylor. But he's just not finding anything down in 8th place.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it is one of those tricky things. It is sunrise, of course, so that means that the track will be a little bit cooler until later on in this race, and the sun will rise, the track temperature will come up. So it might be that some have taken pressures that are a bit more akin to the earlier times in the day, and some maybe have just gone with pressures that'll be a little bit better later in the day. So it could be something down to that with Matthew Johnson. Could be a little bit of an issue with the car as well, or maybe just doesn't feel this track. That is occasionally the case where the driver just doesn't quite get into their zone. I'm seeing Matthew Johnson in P8. Yes, he had a 3.5-second penalty, but that seems to have come as a similar result of whatever issue that he's facing at the moment. But that does mean we've got a breakaway pack of 3 cars at the top of this race, and a PCR 1-2, as you said. Colin Fee's looking for a move on Colin. That's going to be the Collins back at it again. This is going to be an eternal battle, I suspect. A little bit wide there for Colin Fee. Drops a couple of tyres onto the grass. That'll allow Matthew Johnson to come alongside him and possibly fight for that position. It looked like it'll be Matthew Johnson until late break. Got to be careful of the Colin racing car ahead. This is the lovely bit of battle pack of action right now. 2 concrete racing cars going wide off the line there. That's not going to be ideal for them, and that's a 1.5-second penalty for Shane Attard. So what was a P4 and moving slightly away from Trevor Britnell is not going to come of anything, unfortunately for him. He'll serve that next lap. Looks like Colin Fee suffered from the same thing. GLR Scotty still suffering down in P8 at the moment. And yes, we got interrupted, but we did also have to mention this. We had Dean van der Zaan obviously had some sort of major issue early on because he was well down, and he's also now jumped into the pit stop. I wonder what's happened there, but I think it was as a result of a mistake. You can see that lap 3 at 2:13.9.
Well, even so, yeah, 2:13. The second lap wasn't really his best one as well. So even the opening 3 laps wasn't great. So this whole stint that he's been getting, we're seeing the fastest laps of a 1:53 by Jeremy Crow. We have the 2 PCR boys up in front, battling for P1. There's going to probably be a bit of team orders here. They'll let Jeremy Crow go through. A little bit more pace in the 104 for Jeremy Crow, and he's doing himself a really good job there. Fastest lap on lap 3, and it looks like he's just got a little bit of an edge on Mark Pacheco, but Mark Pacheco is just going to hold back a little bit, maybe just learn a little bit more from his teammate for where he can get some pace and really extract these soft tires. But I was going to go back. I didn't want to interrupt you there, George, when you said the sun will rise. I'm sure it will. It's we are on the sunrise setting, so I'm sure the sun will rise very shortly.
Yeah,
but we have Jeremy Crow.
Alternative universe. The sun just doesn't exist at Watkins Glen.
Exactly, very dark there. So the lights are illuminating on our beautiful Mazda 3 Group 4 machinery with Sir Dids having a very good start there. Obviously, has to serve this 1.5-second penalty right now. It'll drop him down. The momentum really slows you down on this back part of the boot section, but it's going to be Shane Adder. Can he hold on to 6th place? Will Johnson sweep it around the outside? There we go, Johnson around the outside. Shane Adder back down to 7th place. Actually, very interesting there. It was very good to see Shane Adder. I think a couple of laps ago, he was down in this position, P7, and all it took him was a few cars making mistakes and a couple of second penalties from the leaders ahead. He put himself up as high as P4, so that's a very good confidence boost there for Shane Adder making his return to the MotorMotion E-Series track. Into the E-Series category. So it's great to see him back there holding down P7 at the moment. So we see Luke Stone already, the first of the pit stoppers in the pit lane there with 50% fuel He's looking to go for that two-stop strategy, but what tyres will he go on? We'll cut to our reporter, Ando Scott, very shortly as he sees the Lightning Motorsport boys going through, changing the tyres, trying to send him out there as quickly as he can. It may look like a very short pit stop here, where the pit transition looks pretty quick, but as soon as you exit the car out of the pit box, it does take a very long time to get them transiting the exit of the pit lane. But it is Matthew Johnson trying to go for the move there. Don't think it's going to be a car with the head. Is he going to try and go for it? They're going to go side by side through the chicane there, and too wide goes. It's a little bit tricky to manage to execute there. Johnson thought he could hold around the outside. Unfortunately, just a little bit of contact made with the CRT driver, and that just compromises Johnson's run to get himself up into P4. But very nice battling there. Very respectable racing by those two.
Yeah, I'd like to cut to our pit lane reporter because the Luke Stone pit stop at 8 laps in is pretty interesting. How are his tyres, Andrew? If we can have a little update on Luke Stone and what his race is looking like right now, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, his tyres were dead, so I don't think he had any choice, and he's pitted after only 7 laps. So if he wants to do a one-stopper, he's going to have to get 15 laps out of a set of mediums and a tank. But guess what, guys? He has not even filled up. So I think he has, he's yielded, he's committed himself to a 2-stop. And he's now got a light fuel load and fresh mediums, so we can expect to see him pit again. And guys, I'm doubtful about this strategy again.
And look at Scott Taylor. He's actually starting to put a little bit of pressure on these guys now. So the race is slowly coming back to the pole sitter in P7. So you can see he's just a little bit quicker than Shane Addard ahead of him. As we can see, all the cars diving to the right-hand side there. It is probably one of the most awkward pit entries in any track around the world, but it is everyone trying to go into the pit lane. Everybody's on soft tyres, but the man that started on pole position leads the way on lap 9 of 23 on the mediums tyre, on the medium strategy. So car 37 leading the way on lap 9 of 23, like he did on lap 1. Now he retakes the lead on lap 3 of 23. So it's all about him just trying to build this gap, try and get these tyres and try and use them as much as you can, because everyone's going to jump on a fresh set of, whether it's mediums, whether it's another set of soft tyres. You need to use the end of the life of these tyres, but don't use them too early, because then your strategy won't play out. And obviously we know here with our pit lane reporter, with Ando Scott, he knows his strategies very well, so I'm pretty sure he'll be keeping an eye on what Scott Taylor's going to be doing in the next few laps.
Yep, the albatross that is Scott Taylor continuing to fly while the rest of the seagulls go into the pits on their soft tyres. It does seem to be the case. We only got Michael Daly, Scott Taylor, and Dave Chucky for CP Motorsports. Those three did not go for a pit stop. Everyone else did. Luke Stone came out ahead of Matthew Joynson, ahead of Jeremy Crow and Mark Pacheco. So I think there's a mix of how much people are putting in the fuel tank. With them all on the softs, it likely seems like most of them will be heading towards a 2-stop strategy. Those that have lost out, that's probably Jeremy Crow and Mark Pacheco. I'm getting the feeling that they might have fueled up to the full. That's why they've ended up out behind Luke Stone and Matthew Joynson. They may be trying to eke out, what's that going to be, 14, 15 laps or so on the medium tyre, because that is the 2 strategies. The 1-stopper is try and go long on the softs, try and go long on the mediums. The 2-stopper is soft, medium, and as we can see with Luke Stone, he's trying to go with a no fuel, so he'll be back out on the soft tyre and absolutely sending it, but then he's going to have quite the long refueling stop to do. He did save a lot more fuel than Jeremy Crow and Mark Pacheco, though. They came in at about 38, 34%, whereas he came in at about 50%, so even with an extra lap done, still puts him around the 43, 44% mark, so it's still saving a bit more fuel than those two out the front. But now it is literally the lone albatross out the front, Scott Taylor, sitting there. I think it's time for an update from our pit lane reporter, Andrew. There was a huge gaggle of cars that came in on their soft tyres with a mix of fuel levels. Who's the winners out of that, and who are the losers out of that, please?
Yeah, I can tell you right now, Scott Taylor is grinning from ear to ear in that gridline car, because the crucial fact is that he stayed in touch with that lead pack ahead of him that were all on soft tyres. So they made no headway whatsoever over him. So he's now sitting in the box seat, folks. He's on pretty worn medium tyres. He's got another 3 laps to do on them, but he'll leak some oil now, but he's looking really good. And I can tell you, of the soft runners that did pit, some of them took fuel and filled up, and some of them did not. So there was a bit of shuffling in the order there for track position, but that will all once again play out in the next pit stop, because some of these guys have got a lot more fuel than others, so they'll have a nice short pit stop for the second time round.
There we
Well,
go.
it looks like the PCR boys. It looks like the PCR boys have filled up their car, because I think I did see briefly on that leaderboard. I did see these guys put 100%, have 100% on their car. So it looks like these guys have filled up. They're probably going to get to the end of the fuel tank, and maybe if Ando can confirm, would a full fuel tank rather on lap 10 of 23, would that potentially get you to the end of the race, or do you have to come in and maybe do a little bit of a splash and dash?
Yeah, well, the Mikuga supercomputers did say that 15 laps from a tank was the optimal shift point. So you don't need to refuel twice in this race if you get it right. So if you choose to refuel on the first or the second stop, that is the way to go. And these guys that refueled, these guys that filled up now, they're now carrying around a whole tank of fuel. So I don't know if that's quite the optimal way to go.
Yeah, because we can see there with the PCR boys, they are a little bit behind Matthew Johnson in P5. Obviously, Michael Daly come into the pit lane on those mediums. 11 of 23. It's going to be a very long stint on those soft tires. If he does do the one stop there, he's going to be running on a rim on the end of lap on the end of his 11th lap, I would say. But I was going to say with the PCR boys, they are a little bit behind Matthew Johnson, but that could come back into play in that second stint and probably get these guys a little bit further up, or maybe a little bit closer to the man in 777. But it is still early days here as we run through the grid. It is Scott Taylor ahead of the first man that has come into the pit lane, Luke Stone for Lightning Motorsport in P2. We have Dave Chucky yet to make his pit stop to try to keep his place ahead of Matthew Johnson, but Dave Chucky runs a little bit deep there. Johnson around the outside with much more grip. Wow, what a move there by Matthew Johnson. Took all the risks that he could, try to not to hit Dave Chucky and fend him off and push him wide, but really compromised his entry there to Dave Chucky. And Johnson said, "Thank you very much" on these fresh tyres. And what a great move there by the man in 777. That will look like a heart and mouth moment there for the 777. And then we have Jeremy Crow down in 5th and 6th place, with Colin Fee 7th and Shade Addard and rounding up the top 8. George, I can't believe that. That was a great move.
That was unbelievable. I mean, talk about Mr. Opportunity right there. Matthew Johnson knew that he needed to get it done, and then just said, you know what? There's a bit of room there. He had to have a bit of compliance there from Dave Chucky, though, who would have had certainly a heart and mouth moment. Might be calling a Code Brown back to the pit lane for when he does end up in the pits, because that was certainly a moment. Wouldn't have liked to be in his car when you've got someone as eager as Matthew Johnson coming on through with a move like that in the bus stop. No, thank you.
Absolutely.
That might have been in slight contravention to the driver's briefing, that move, guys. But
yes.
It was a very sexy move. I'll give him that.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. But it did a very good job there. He did not offend, did not try to push Dave Chucky wide. Obviously, Dave Chucky has yet to pit, so he's definitely running on some old tyres there, trying to run a very similar strategy to Scott Taylor. But this does give Johnson a little bit of an upper hand here, so he's going to try and really push this stint as much as he can to try and really close that gap to Scott Taylor in first place. And it's all about where you set yourself up in this final stint. As we can see, lap 12 of 23, Scott Taylor definitely going for the one stop, really trying to eke out his fuel and really trying to eke out his tyres, trying to match them, trying to get them aligned perfectly. When he comes into the pit lane, all he has to do is to put a short stint on the soft tyres and a small fuel tank to get to the end. So Scott Taylor trying to get his strategy masterclass working here around Watkins Glen. As we said earlier in the broadcast, you can see the marbling on the outside of the toe. It is absolutely diabolical there. That left-hand side of the car must be screaming in pain, and we can just see the marbling around the outside of the toe, especially here around the heel as well. You're going to be seeing a lot of cars, out braking themselves. Once they get onto the marbles, it is very, very slippery there. As we can see as well, the PCR boys slowly catching up to Matthew Johnson, I will say. So it looks like these two are working very well together to close the gap to Matthew Johnson, because we have to remember Johnson does have to come in and put a little bit more fuel compared to the PCR boys. So these PCR boys are going to try their absolute best to close up to Matthew Johnson and potentially steal what could be a P2 or P3 away from him.
Yeah, exactly right. And Scott Taylor, I mean, he is in the box seat right now, not just on track, but certainly in strategy. He's trying to eke things out as much as possible. His teammate, Michael Daly, though, pitting a lot earlier on the medium tyre, was expecting to see him try and go a little bit longer on that. I mean, if you're doing the one stop, you really do need to eke things out to about lap 14 or 15, which is what we're going to see Scotty try and do. So maybe his teammate just realized that he's not got the tyres to get to that point, so maybe had to make a bit of a mid-race shift in strategy towards a two-stopper. Or he might be just running, he might have to try and run those softs for, well over 14 laps. And that is going to be even more of a mission of trying to get the mediums to lap 14 or 15. So Michael Daly's in a spot of trouble there with his strategy. And maybe things have gone slightly awry for the other gridline racing driver. But Scott Taylor seems to be holding fast to what he's decided to do, what the engineers and whatever computer he's got access to in the background has told him to do. And it's going to be a really interesting race to see whether or not the PCR chaps and their strategy will be on equal terms. I think they're very clearly going to be trying to get through most of the remainder of this race with a nice full tank of fuel. My prediction of Matthew Joynson here is looking a little bit interesting at this stage. As with Luke Stone, I don't think Luke Stone's strategy is maybe working out for him either this time. He's a man with so much pace. So it's a real shame to see if the strategy does not work out for him again today. It's going to be a real shame across the season, because what could have been for Luke Stone and Lightning Motorsport, they had a great first 3 rounds in the European leg, but everything seems to have fallen apart a little bit here at the Americas circuit, whether it's tyre degradation or just the circuits themselves. Something has not gone quite right with the strategy, sadly for them. But he's in P2 right now. He's under pressure from Matthew Joynson. Likely Matthew Joynson will get past, because it looks like Matthew's on the faster tyre at this stage. You can just see he's got infinite amounts more grip than Luke Stone right now, and it'll come down to the strategy. Oh, Matthew Joynson, careful there. Don't want to run onto the grass and miss the barrier. He's not your friend. As our leader, Scott Taylor, does come into the pits, and these two will go on through for yet another lap up into the lead. Luke Stone will now be leading this race provisionally. Can he make it happen? Can he make it work? Can Lightning Motorsport bring together a strategy that will work for this man at these American circuits? Well, Matthew Joynson's got a few things to say about it, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. Going into the 90, it's going to be Matthew Joynson just ahead of Luke Stone and retakes the lead of this race. But he's run a little bit wide there. That might compromise him. No, he doesn't. So he just needs to brace himself to see what Luke Stone does. Does Luke Stone give him a little bit of a push? Does he help him a little bit? He's not thinking about a push. He's thinking about taking back that P1 that Matthew Joynson took away from him. It's not really the best opportunity to go for a move there at the 90, because he got this long back straight here. They can really maximize the slipstream, but with these Mazda 3s, it does take a little while to build up that speed, and really does take a while to get that get underneath that rear wing of the opposition of the man that is ahead of you. So unfortunately for Luke Stone, it doesn't look like he's going to be able to get back that P1, but we do have to remember as well, ladies and gentlemen, that Luke Stone was the first pit stopper out of this whole pack, and he's on the medium tyres compared to what is Matthew Joynson on a soft compound. So Matthew Johnson's really going for it. He's going for the full send. He's going to try to get about lap 16, lap 17 potentially, and throw on those mediums to run to the end of the race, while we have Scott Taylor, who just came into the pit lane. He's probably just outside the top 10. He's on a fresh set of soft tyres, so look out for what Scott Taylor could do at the back end of this race. But we are still seeing some very good racing around here. The top 4 is actually pretty close within each other there. Probably around about a 5-second gap between separating the top 4. And remember, we have to keep an eye on what that 37 in Scott Taylor does when he comes, when everyone else makes their pit stop for the last time.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, the only time you can really overtake at the 90 is when you absolutely know unequivocally that you are faster than the car ahead. That's the only time it really makes sense, because you'll get a better launch anyway. That means you're usually safe from the slipstream, so it's usually a bit of a safe one. Matthew Joynson had to know, so he might have taken a bit of a punt and just, gone for it and said, well, I assume that I'm on a faster tyre. Seem to be faster out on track. Let's go for it. The 90 does make it work this time, of course, puts them up into provisional lead. Then we've got the 2 PCR boys, P3, P4, and then the 2 Kung Fu Racing chaps as well. We've got Colin Fee in P5, Shane Attard in P6. Good stuff there. The question is, will their strategy work out and hold on to that position? Then it's Mitch Collin of Collin Racing Team in P7. Then there's Matthew Hatton in number 45 car for Juice Motorsport, Matthew Johnson's teammate. then Troy Britnell, Luke Stone's teammate and team owner of Lightning Motorsport, and Troy Britnell. Then there's Scott Taylor, P10 at the moment. Now that might look like he's really far down the grid, but he is going to be on the faster tyre now. He should have plenty of pace. Does have to manage his tyre though in this part of the race. Has to manage the tyre, has to manage the fuel, just that little bit. But I mean, look at the grip difference. It's obvious. Yeah. It's easy. That is as easy as you like, down and up through the S's and in towards the bus stop chicane. So he'll be making a lot of progress. And as you said before, Nick, as well, lots of pit stops in the 9 or 8 cars ahead of him now. So this position will rapidly change. If he can put in a good few laps around the low 153s, he is going to be in a brilliant spot to take P1 in this race.
Well, look at the gap that he's got between himself and Matthew Hatton and Matsumako. He's got a huge amount of clear air there, so he can really manage his pace. If he can really manage that, yes, you said 53s, mid 53s, I don't think he's going to really go for fastest lap here, because even though it might be good for bragging rights, it maybe gives you an extra point or two, but at the same time, he just needs to manage his tyres and really just get them to the end of the 10th lap. So he's only gone personal best there on his medium run there, so he's not really finding the pace that he had on those medium tyres, finding that consistency. But if we go back on board with Scott Taylor, we're going to try and see if we can go for a little bit of a lap here. But before we go for that onboard lap, we do see Matthew Johnson into the pit lane, 7% of fuel there. Looks like Jeremy Crow ahead of him has gone ahead of Luke Stone. So Luke Stone really struggling on those medium tyres with Mark Pacheco inside the top 3. But here we are, ladies and gentlemen, the man that we're going to be keeping our eyes on for a whole lap here around the beautiful circuit that is Watkins Glen International. We are going to go for an onboard lap with the Gridline Racer as he looks to take away that position 1 and lead this race to the checkered flag. So stay tuned, turn up the volume, and enjoy the onboard lap with Scott Taylor.
And that is what it looks like when you are cool, calm and collected and on a brilliant lap. Lovely driving there from Scott Taylor. Everyone else is now in the pits, including Luke Stone, Jeremy Crow, Mark Pacheco, and the Kung Fu Racing team as well. Troy Britnell is going for another lap there, it does appear, but everyone else coming in. So this is Scott Taylor's chance right here. That was a 53.9. But I just want to make a note on how smooth the inputs were. He is looking after the tires beautifully. He's going to have plenty in the tank now. We've got 6 laps remaining in this race. We're on the 17th lap now. Troy Britnell is a ways down the road with a huge gaggle of cars lining up to do what they can to take a shot at this man right here. Scott Taylor in the box seat, ready to go. He is on for a P1, driving beautifully, driving calmly. It's the look of a man who is in tune with the car, in tune with the strategy, and in tune with the circuit that is Watkins Glen, ready to go. And then look at the pack that we've got back here. Troy Britnell going to be overtaken rapidly by a number of cars behind them. Jeremy Crow goes for the move. Down the chute we go. Behind them, Mark Pacheco coming up rapidly. Then Matthew Joynson, Luke Stone, Mitch Collin, and then the Kung Fu Racing chaps rounding out P8 and P9. This is going to be very spicy at the end here. All of these drivers are going to be on a fairly fast strategy, but I think, as I understand it, and we might have to throw to our pit lane reporter, these guys will all be on the medium tyre now.
No, they're on the softs, and all's been shaken out and said and done now with the pit stops for the two stoppers, and it looks like Black Friday might have lost out here, because the PCR guys have gained a little advantage, and it looks like he's now lost track position, and he's going to have to catch them. So he was the one that pitted earlier, and the PCR guys got the overcut done.
Absolutely. I was going to say that the PCR guys looks like they've gone for a soft strategy. Remember, they don't have to touch those mediums or hard tyres if they don't want to, with the compulsory being the soft tyres. So PCR potentially pulling a rabbit out of the hat here, making the strategy work. Might not be for the win, as we can see Scott Taylor up the road, well ahead up the road. And Mark Pacheco going for the inside move on Troy Britnell. He does that very cleanly, but Matthew Joynson right behind there. And I think I did see as well in the pit lane, I'm not so sure, maybe we can get to Ando about the fuel numbers, but we did see there with Jeremy Crow and Mark Pacheco, the difference in fuel that we saw between Matthew Joynson and Luke Stone and the PCR boys was absolutely astronomical, and that's what's got them ahead in this race.
Yeah, so they decided to fill up in the first stop, so they almost needed no fuel at all, and they were able to jump the Juice driver because he obviously didn't refuel at all on the first stop, I don't think.
I think I saw him coming with like 7% going into that second pit stop, so he lost a lot of time. So even if Matthew Joynson did fill up a little bit in that first, and he could have definitely jumped at least one of the PCR cars, maybe even two of them. So he's got a little bit of work to do. He knows he might have a little bit of a pace advantage over the PCR boys. That's why he got himself P2 after qualifying. So he might have a little bit more pace in him, but we'll have to find out as we get to the end of lap 18, start of lap 19, with Scott Taylor leading the way ahead of the two PCR boys in Jeremy Crow, Mark Pacheco, Joynson, and then we have Luke Stone swooping around the outside of his teammate. Troy Britnell's tyres must be absolutely shot. He's losing positions hands over fist, and he might have to come into the pit lane for maybe a quick tyre change and maybe a little splash and dash. We'll see what his strategy is all about. But Luke Stone, again, we see this man here, George. We know he's got the potential, we know he's got the pace, but last time out at Laguna Seca, his strategy didn't work there. He finished in 10th place. He qualified P4. He was running up the front a little bit earlier, ran a bit of a different strategy on those medium tyres, and we can see there he's one of the quickest drivers on track, but it's not delivering on the paper. He's not inside that top three, and it's not even first place. So what is happening? What does this man need to do if he wants to find that upper edge on the others?
Well, what you need to do is come back for another season of racing where you take the lessons away from the season that you've already done, and you'll quickly find out on retrospect with the TCR Trak Racer Cup that it is not about how fast you can go out on track. It is all about tyre management. It's all about strategy, fuel management, and your race smart. That is the absolute key thing in the series like this. That is a track cut as well, so there you go. Doesn't matter how fast you are. If you go and cut a track and make these little mistakes, they all start to add up, and your strategy can go out the window before you know it. A 3-second penalty for cutting the bus stop chicane. That is super painful. So any shot that he had of getting within the slipstream range of Matthew Joynson now absolutely gone. And in fact, he'll find himself potentially falling back very close to Troy Britnell, who let him through at the penalty line last lap. Didn't want to get involved in that, of course, team leader and all. Wants to see his faster driver move up. Doesn't actually move to the left there, does realize after the fact, but he was pretty safe on that one. Still, race stewards do say move to the left when you serve a penalty. Nonetheless, Luke Stone, it's just going from bad to worse for him, but the strategy might have been okay for this. He was giving a lot of pace. He was doing 52s. He would have shredded his tyres. Only 4 laps to go now, so would have been in a pretty good spot to at least get into the slipstream range of Matthew Joynson, who's been setting 53s at the moment. Trying to chase after Mark Pacheco is Matthew Joynson. But yeah, Luke Stone looks like he won't be taking advantage of that great start that he had, going from 4th to 1st in a number of corners on lap 1. and that's just unfortunately not gone his way. Bit overcast here too, so not quite as sunrisey as we thought it was going to be. The sun is up, it's just behind a layer of clouds too. Very unfortunate there. So we've got Matthew Joynson in P4 now. He's chasing after Mark Pacheco. Pacheco's doing 53 flats though, so he's looking very, very quick at the end of this race. We're on the 20th lap now. Jeremy Crow is setting 53 twos, and ahead, you can see not too far ahead now, Scott Taylor on 54s. There is nearly a second delta there per lap. But will that be enough? That's the question.
Yeah. And I was going to say as well, he's not really setting lightning pace like compared to the Lightning Motorsports driver. Play on words there. So 53.8 for Scott Taylor is, like I said, I think he's just managing these tires. Like I said at the beginning of his stint, he doesn't care. He shouldn't care about the fastest lap. It's all about getting these tires to the end because he's on a one-stop strategy. He doesn't want to push this as well compared to what we're seeing with Jeremy Crow. He's on a two-stop. He can go full send. Same with Mark Pacheco. Same with Matthew Joynson. Same with Luke Stone. These guys are going to the end of these races. They are rapidly chasing Scott Taylor with only 3 and a bit laps to go until the end of this race, but it is closing up a little bit. The PCR boys have got nothing to lose here. This could potentially give one of these guys a first victory here at MotorMotion E Series. We've seen Scott Taylor take countless victories in the Player 1 GT3 Championship in the supercars, in the Surefire supercars. He's taken some victories here in Trak Racer TCR Cup, so he knows what it takes to get victory around here. But the boys down the bottom with Jeremy Crow, Mark Pacheco, a couple of wins next to their name, but they are not going to give up. They are going to make this two-work strategy work for them, and they are going to push the absolute limit that those tyres can push with 3 laps to go. But we'll go to our pit lane reporter, Nando Scott. Can you tell us what the wear of Scott Taylor's soft tyres are doing? Are they screaming in agony? Are they screaming in pain? Or is Scotty just gently caressing them and just slightly using a little bit less compared to the guys that are doing the two-stop strategy?
Yeah, his front left tyre is definitely looking worse for wear, but he's only got 3 laps to go. So it looks like this is working well for him, and it's all due to his choice of driving style. As we saw with the onboard lap there, he just focuses on maintaining really smooth inputs and minimising that tyre noise. And it looks like he could be on the master strategy here, guys. He could pull this off.
Well, we are excited to see what Scott Taylor can do. Let's do a full run through our grid in just a moment. But in terms of the standings, yeah, this is why I was a bit surprised with Matthew Joynson. It's a little bit off his game today, I think, at the end of the day, because he is 4th in the overall Drivers' Championship, ahead of the likes of Nick Pfaff, Luke Stone, Andrew Scott, and Pacheco. So he's really doing well in the drivers' standings, and he's done that in amongst some of the fastest drivers in TCR Season 3. So to see him in a lobby that is a little less alien-like and sitting in P4 just shows that I think he's just a little bit off his game today, but it's been a really good effort by the PCR chaps, and they're going to take home a huge amount of team points and driver points regardless of the result here. They're currently P2, P3. So let's run through the grid. Scott Taylor P1, of course, Jeremy Crow P2 for PCR, Mark Pacheco in P3, then Matthew Joynson closing in on Mark Pacheco, getting ever closer. Luke Stone for Lightning Motorsport, then Mitch Collin in P6. This is a great result if he can pull this one out of the bag, and Collin Racing Team will certainly take those points home and be opening some champagne at the end of this race, I suspect. Then Troy Britnell in P7, followed by the 2 Kung Fu Racing cars, Colin Fee in P8, Shane Attard in P9, so it's gone slightly off the track for these two today. Then it is Matthew Hatton in P10, Michael Daly, whose strategy hasn't worked out today either, in P11, Dave Chucky making another return yet again for CP Motorsports in P12, Dean van der Zandt, whose race has really been over from about lap 2, and picks up another penalty for his troubles, a race to forget. And then, of course, Colin Racing's Padajak in P14 at the moment, but all eyes right now are on the gap between Scott Taylor and Jeremy Crow, and whether or not Jeremy Crow in 2 laps can make up the gap and make an overtake. I'd say at this point looking increasingly unlikely.
It is looking unlikely, but he's not going to give up. You can just see he's just closing a little bit. 54.695 versus the 53.6. So he's taken nearly a second away from Scott Taylor. He's not giving up here, George. He wants to go for it. Obviously, you know that you might be beaten out on strategy, but Birdman's going to go for pride and joy for the PCR boys and try and get as close as he can as try and close that gap on the finishing time. But so he's not going to give up. He's going to give it his best. He's going to try and see if he can get himself another 53 on this lap and try and see what he can do on the final lap there. But I do want to make a shout out there to the CP boys, CP Motorsport boys, with Dave Chucky and Dean Vanderson. Not the best race we've seen with CP Motorsports. And we do have to remember as well, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not a long-time viewer of the MotorMotion E-Series TCR Cup, CP Motorsports was right up there last time out of the season in Season 2 with the mixed categories of 5 different manufacturers, with Dan Wood and Diswood 1 winning the championship in the CP Motorsport Suzuki Swift. So those guys had a very high reputation of getting the cars up the front end, of the pointy end of the TCR championship. But down in 12th and 13th place, a lot of head scratching there for Chase and for his boys to try and get them back up towards the front end next time out.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, whatever it is, the Mazda 3 Group cars throwing a bit of a curveball to the CP Motorsport team at the moment, but they'll still be proud of their drivers. Very great organization is CP Motorsports. Chase is an incredible leader as well, and I'm sure they'll be looking at what's gone wrong this season, maybe try and fix that as much as they possibly can. Throughout the last 3 races, we've got Daytona Endurance coming up next week, which is going to be great fun to watch. The full infield as well, of course. That's going to be great. We are on the last lap now. GLR Scotty still got a reasonably good gap, and that was a bad lap, unfortunately, from Jeremy Crow, 54.2, which is only 0.3 of a gain on GLR Scotty. That needed to be an extra second, and he would have been right there in the slipstream, but it is the final lap. GLR Scotty looking untouchable right now. He's managed the race very, very well at this stage. Luke Stone will take the fastest lap. No one's going to be going faster than a 52.857 at this stage. And Watkins Glen and Scott Taylor, a match apparently made in heaven or maybe made in New York. We'll find out in a few moments' time. Last few corners for this man right now. Gridline Racing will be taking home what is going to be their maiden victory in Season 3. PCR going to take home a fantastic result as well. P2 and P3, that is a ton of team points. That is a lot of driver points as well. And what a race. Scott Taylor managed the one-stop absolutely perfectly. Those around him, he sort of forced them into a slower overall strategy throughout the race. Started on pole position on the medium tire, slow everyone down. Beautifully executed strategy from Scott Taylor, and he takes home pole position in qualifying and the race win. What a day out for Gridline Racing and Scott Taylor. We'll take a look at the full results in just a moment, but just admire for 1 second here not only GLR Scotty, but also the likes of PCR, Matthew Joynson, Luke Stone, and Mitch Collin, who we will be talking about in a moment's time. Let's go and take a look now at the race results that have just come up on our screen. Scott Taylor, what a race there. And Nick, we've got to talk about Mitch Collin as well. We'll do that in just a second, but please run us through our results for now, and then let's talk about who our driver of the day is.
Oh yeah, it's a perfect masterclass there of what it is about tyre preservation, looking after your tyres, and thinking outside the box there. And that's exactly what Scott Taylor did, and that's what the Gridline Racing boys did, and taking the victory here for round 5 of Season 3 for the Trak Racer TCR Cup. So well done to Scott Taylor, and it's a well done for the PCR boys in Jeremy Crow, Mark Pacheco. My predictions didn't come out right. Maybe a little bit of a switch or role reverse there. Maybe Jeremy Crow, I probably should have predicted Jeremy Crow to be ahead of Mark Pacheco, but I've been proud of these guys. I've been looking at these guys' progress throughout the whole season. They've been doing an outstanding job to get their cars up towards the pointy end, and they keep doing that. They keep charging through, and they are the underdog team that everyone likes to show their support. Disappointed that he couldn't keep himself up with the like of Scott Taylor and battle for that victory. So a little bit of head scratching for the Juice Motorsports driver. Luke Stone as well. Again, a little bit more head scratching, a little bit more thinking. Needs to think a little bit more of what he can do to get that strategy to work in his favor. And like you said, Mitch Collin in P6, take a bow. Beautiful race for him. Whatever strategy he ran, he managed to get that car into 6th place. And then Colin Fee, Mitch Collin, Colin Fee, you can't keep these two apart, George. They started close to each other in qualifying, and now they finished close to each other in the race. So Mitch Collin 6, Colin Fee in 7th place. So Kung Fu's Racing's good result there, good form, like we saw last time out at Laguna Seca, is now coming through in this race at Watkins Glen. Shane Addard 8th, Troy Britnell 9th, Matthew Hatton rounds up the top 10, and as we said earlier there, Dave Chucky, Dean Van der Steen 11th, 12th place. A little bit of work to do for CP Motorsports, but the next round will be very important for them. Double points and a 1 hour endurance for CP Motorsports to try and find some pace in the Mazda 3s. Then Michael Daly, Chris Patajak rounding up the top 14. That has been certainly a great race from all of us here at round 5 for season 3 in Lobby 1. But Scott Taylor, wow. And I think if there's a man that would be very happy, that would be absolutely happy with his results, with Scott Taylor's result in his good mate Ando Scott. So Ando, obviously we'll come to you. What does it mean for Scott Taylor to try and get this victory? And you know, you grew up working alongside him during the pandemic in 2020, and you've seen the progress that Scott Taylor has made throughout his sim racing career, obviously, and he's made this work perfectly. And obviously, you're probably learning from yourself, maybe learning a little bit more about himself. But you know, it's a very good win, and I think everyone that supports MotorMotion E-Series will be proud of Scott Taylor taking victory.
Yeah, I think the Gridline boys will be partying tonight, and they'll be partying hard, because I think that might actually be Scotty's first win in this series, and we all know how much work he puts into it. He's run it for 3 seasons now, and he does a great job. And yeah, he's just gotten better and better as a driver as well. And it's come to fruition today with an absolute perfect execution of what looks to be the optimal strategy around here. So he's chosen strategy well, he's executed it perfectly. And yeah, my driver of the day, definitely GLR Scotty.
There we go. All right, so before we jump into Nick and I's driver of the day, we're going to have a chat. Give us your driver of the day. Let us know who you think did best out on track, who executed the strategy to perfection here in Watkins Glen in New York. Nick, over to you. Let's hear what your driver of the day is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have given it to the PCR boys in both Jeremy Crow, Mark Pacheco being the best of the rest with the teams. You know, they're getting themselves 92 points out of this. So a huge points haul for both PCR drivers and Jeremy Crow, Mark Pacheco. But I have to agree with Ando. Scott Taylor, that one-stop strategy, almost losing it. If he had a couple more laps in him, definitely Jeremy Crow would have gone through and taken the victory. But I can't take my eyes away from it. Scott Taylor, gridline racing, maximum points, pole position, lights to flag. Didn't get the best launch, but obviously that was because he was running on a different tyre strategy, and that strategy worked to absolute perfection. Scott Taylor, my driver of the day.
Fantastic. 2 votes then for Scott Taylor, and some honourable mentions around as well, which is fantastic to see. Do let us know in chat. We're eager to see, especially if we get a deadlock. I'm going to go out on a little bit of a left field here. My honourable mention is going to go to Scott Taylor. Great race there, executed it well, etc., etc. Absolutely, and his first win, really, really well done. But I can't keep taking my eyes off Mitchell Collin. For Column Racing Team in P6, it is their best result of the season for Column Racing Team, and they've whether the strategy was executed perfectly or not really a concern to me. Mitchell Collin, that's a good result for him and for the team. P6, his best result this season so far, and the best result for Column Racing Team overall. So I'm going to give my vote for driver of the day to Mitchell Collin. So it's 2-1 Scott Taylor to Mitchell Collin. Let us know in chat who your driver of the day is. Thank you very much to Nick and Andrew for their votes as well. We're looking forward to seeing what Lobby 2 has in store for us, because the top teams and the top drivers are all collated in that single lobby, Lobby 2. Not to take anything away from Lobby 1, of course, that was an exciting race to behold. We are going to go on a short 5-minute break, and then we will be back to give you the coverage of Lobby 2. So stay tuned here. Make sure you like and subscribe, comment who your driver of the day is, and we'll be back with you in 5 minutes to begin the coverage of Lobby 2. Oh, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is the return of the Trak Racer TCR Cup, Round 5, Season 3, of course, with the MotorMotion E-Series League. You can check us out on www.motormotioneseries.wordpress.com. Give us a like and subscribe here on YouTube, and check us out on Facebook to join the paddock and get involved in what is one of the premier GT7 leagues in Australia and New Zealand and the world. So, we have just had an incredible race in Lobby 1. We're very much looking forward to seeing what Lobby 2 is going to do. It certainly seems like today's race is all about the strategy. You get it right and get yourself into a good position, and you are in for a win. This Lobby 2, though, is looking rather stacked. We've got the likes of Steph Franson, Lewis Atkinson, Mick Hill, Andrew Scott, Nick Pfaff, Morgan Davey, all in the same lobby. This is going to be quite the race to behold. So we are very much looking forward to seeing what happens out there today for Lobby 2. So we do have our qualifying results for Lobby 2, so we're going to jump into those immediately. All of us here in the commentary box very much looking forward to what's going to be an extremely exciting Lobby 2. So let's see who's qualified where. Nick, take us away.
Lobby 2 is the one we've been looking forward to, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing to take away from Lobby 1, but the Lobby 2 is where the aliens come out to play. And around Watkins Glen, it is going to be Steph Franson yet again. He's got the nickname for a reason, the Flying Dutchman. He's definitely must be a Max Verstappen fan, because he is absolutely flying in that street to track Mazda 3 and putting it on pole position. But then he's got his fast rival in Lewis Atkinson. So we know these two very fast drivers when it comes to one lap pace. Steph Franson might just have an upper edge in the race itself, but Lewis Atkinson is going to put out a good fight in P2 with the Astor boys, Nick Pfaff, Morgan Davey, third and fourth place. So Pfaff getting the bragging rights over his faster teammate in Morgan Davey. And then we have Matt Donerty for Hassel One Motorsport in 5th place. And then we have the Me Cougar boys, 6th and 7th place. So Andrew Scott definitely did not get a good lap in maybe struggling a couple of times, getting caught out by the bus stop by a few 1.5 penalties there, but he only just managed to get a lap time on his final lap there. He kept it clean through the bus stop, and that just kind of compromised his confidence to get himself up towards the pointy end of this stacked lobby that we can call Lobby 2, with Mick Hill 7th place, Rob Jacobs for the second Hoon Corp entry in 8th place, Jason Oswald in 9th, Boris Blazenik inside the top 10. So we need to keep our eyes as well on Jason Oswald. We don't want to call him the sack potato, the potato sack in the street to track battle for the teams championship, but we do need to see a little bit more from Jason Oswald to try and help his teammate and try and help Street to Track get themselves up to that pointy end in the teams championship. Then we have Tony Griffin, Mark Hasseldine, Andrew Ernst, and Brent Allen rounding up the rear of the field here. But it is time to get started, gentlemen. Let us know who we are going to predict for this race here. And George, I don't know about you, but it's very hard to predict who is going to win this one, because we have the best of the best here at MotorMotion E-Series. We have the fastest drivers that we've been seeing scattered in all of the lobbies from round 1 to round 4, but round 5 is where we get to see them all come to play here at Watkins Glen International. I'm very excited. I just can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely brilliant. It's hard to tell. I mean, we've got two incredibly quick drivers at the top, Steph Franson and Lewis Atkinson. Then, of course, Nick Pfaff there. I do unfortunately have to report there has been an issue with Astor Racing's Mazda 3. Morgan Davey is not going to be able to participate. That means Matt Dernedy is going to be elevated to P4 at the start of this race. So unfortunately for Morgan Davey, who's been a fierce contender in the last couple of rounds, is not going to be on the grid. Nick Pfaff is not going to have his not going to have anyone to defend for. He's going to be the minister defending his own position this time out. So he'll be on 3rd on the grid. Matt Dernedy, then Ando Scott, P5, Mick Hill. That is literally breaking news, everyone. That has just come in. We can see the Astor Racing car. It's not out there on the grid. That shakes things up massively for the beginning of this race. My money's on the Flying Dutchman. I think he's got it pretty much covered this race, but we will see. Interesting there, the qualifying for the Meat Cougar chaps as well. I do understand that Andrew Scott has picked up the COVID on his travels in America. That might have contributed to that ever so slightly. We will see. We're about to go live and head onto the track because the cars are ready and the stewards and the race admins are about to get things started. Let's go out and see what happens in Lobby 2. Here we go. 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. And leading us away will be Steph Franson on the start. The lights go out. We are green flag racing. Terrible start for Nick Pfaff. He's completely missed the start there. He's already dropped the P5. Steph Franson gets away nicely. Lewis Atkinson gets away nicely as well. They're 4 wide in the background there. That's going to have to sort itself out relatively quickly. Matt Dernedy picks up P3 in this race. Andrew Scott has also picked up as a position, as has Mick Hill. Nick Pfaff has gone from P2 to P7 in 1 corner, everyone. Nick Pfaff has got a huge job to do ahead of him now. Steph Franson going to be trying to defend against Lewis Atkinson as they head towards the bus stop. Lewis might be looking for a bit of a scent here. No, decides to work with Steph at the beginning of this race to get himself out of the grasp of Matt Dernedy, who's coming up rapidly behind them. Grass there, picked up by Steph Franson at the exit of the bus stop chicane. Not ideal for him, but he's got a helper in Lewis Atkinson behind him. Clearly wants to work together at the beginning of this race. And the top 7 running away with things. The end of that train is Nick Pfaff down in P7. Rob Jacobs for Hoon Corp Esports has moved up into P6 as well. Then it's P8 Jason Oswald leading the second pack in this race. Looks like the top 7 have already broken away to a massive degree over that second pack. So they're really putting their foot down and getting things started. Good run up the toe there for Steph Franson. Puts a little bit of distance on HC Lewis. Matt Dernedy is going to be looking for a move on Lewis as soon as he possibly can. I reckon they're all on the same tyres at the beginning of this race. Andrew Scott and Mick Hill, the Meat Cougar cars, P4 and P5 all ready, and they're going to have to get their way past Matt Dernedy as soon as they possibly can. It is the tippy top, the best, not the best of the rest. They are the best here in the Trak Racer TCR Cup Season 3, all 7 of them leading us away, but the Flying Dutchman in the 72 car for Street to Track, he's already got a little bit of a gap there. Lewis Atkinson falling back into the grasps of Matt Dernedy. Can't compare to the pace right now of Steph Franson, who's going full send, has done so through the entirety of the first lap, puts the fastest lap in, of course, and will go for a second lap of this race. What on earth happened to Nick Pfaff there? That is the most unfortunate situation for Astor that we could possibly imagine, Nick.
If it couldn't get from bad to worse with Morgan Davey not starting this race, Nick Pfaff goes from fourth, well, roughly down to sixth, seventh place at the end of the opening lap. But he has put himself back up into P6 there, but it's only just a small win there. I think Nick Pfaff is really going to miss his experienced and faster teammate in Morgan Davey. He wanted to have his teammate with him so he can battle these guys, because we know Nick Pfaff and Morgan Davey are a very deadly duo when it comes to TCR racing, and we have seen that over the past few rounds in the European leg, and especially last time out at Laguna Seca. But Nick Pfaff, what a horrible start there by the Astor boys. They couldn't get the clutch down, and he got a little bit of front wheel spin on his Mazda 3, and we just saw the Me Cougar boys pass him swiftly. So we saw the Me Cougars start very low down the order, 5th and 6th place after Morgan Davies' DNS in this race, but they've both of them have passed that Astor 92 up into 4th and 5th place. But a great start there by the Handsome Banana in the Flying Dutchman of Steph Franson, our championship leader here in the Trak Racer TCR Cup for Season 3. He's doing exactly what he's been doing. Nick Pfaff looking for a move on Mick Hill, doesn't get it done. The top 7 running away a little bit. We can see there Jason Oswald is actually breaking away from that secondary pack, and he's going to close up slowly to Rob Jacobs. So we have ourselves a very good pack of drivers here. We've got ourselves some street to track duo of the Handsome Banana in Steph Franson and S2D Goju in Jason Oswald. We have the two Hooncorp boys, HC Lewis Atkinson, and Rob Jacobs in 7th place. Then we have the Me Cougar boys in 4th and 5th place. As we can see there, the only driver that is a sole driver in this team, the Hassel 1 Motorsport. We did not see as well on the leaderboard. We did not see Mark Hasseltine make the trip over, so it's all up to Matt Donetti to get that Hassel 1 Motorsport Mazda 3 up towards the pointy end, and he's the only one doing it. So he's battling it up into P2. Lewis loses out at the 90 on lap 3 of 23. Ando Scott right behind there. We know this man's treasure. We know what he's going to do. He's not going to fight for moves earlier, but after a poor qualifying result there, it's a great result to get himself up into that top 4. But he can see his potential rival for this championship and for, overall pace in Steph Franson pulling away there, and he's gapping the field like no other.
Yeah, exactly right. It's all going to come down to strategy, as we well know. So I get the feeling the Me Cougar supercomputer has been hard at work trying to figure out exactly what's going to be the right thing to do. Matt Donetti there into the chute, going very, very wide. Will hold on to the position. Lewis Atkinson not able to really get the power down as effectively as he might have liked to take advantage of that opportunity. Also, Mick Hill's been defending like a minister of defense against Nick Pfaff. So Nick Pfaff's going to have to figure out a way to get past the staunch defender of Mick Hill, who's keeping Me Cougar in P4 and P5. Lewis Atkinson earlier in the lap did lose out into the 90 to Matt Donetti, who's now up into P2. Steph Franson is just going full send. So I suspect he's on one of those strategies. He'll probably be going for a 2-stop strategy, I suspect. He gets to take advantage of a soft stint, or a potentially 2 or 3 soft stints in this race. Doesn't look like he started on the medium tyres. I think it's the perfect time, though, to take a little trip down to our pit lane reporter in Andrew Scott. Andrew, please give us a little rundown of the top 5 or 6 in this race. What kind of strategies they're on, who's using more fuel. What's this race start look like from your perspective?
Yeah, it looks like most guys are on the soft tyre, guys, so excuse me. And only one of the top 6 is on mediums. It's a bit of a cork in the bottle situation here. I think you can see who. It's HC Lewis has decided to start on mediums. So he might be doing a 2-stop, but running mediums as his race tyre. But what that's done in the first few laps is it's released the Flying Dutchman. He's gone. He's checked out. So the Me Cougar guys who suffered a poor qualifying result, I think are paying the price here by being stuck behind the medium runner. And I can tell you, Nick Pfaff, guys, the red mist has descended after that poor start. He made an incredibly good move into turn 1 a couple of laps ago to get back to P6. And he is all over the back of Disposable Hero now. He's using up his tyres. He's using up his fuel. He's just going full send.
And almost goes full send there in the chute there, trying to go past Mick Hill in 5th place. We can see there, he's frustrated. He hasn't got a teammate to help him out, so it's all on his own. He wants to try and give Astor Racing a good result. This might not help him in the team's championship, but he wants to get these guys a good result. And a top 5, potentially a podium, will be a great result for Nick Pfaff after what's going on in this race here. But that is a very interesting point, that interesting remark that you've made there about Lewis Atkinson in P3 on the medium tyres. So we did see this with Scott Taylor, but we do know the Lahoon Corp Mazda 3s, and I tested it out last time out at Spa when I was having a bit of a run with Lewis Atkinson's car. They do chew their tyres pretty quickly. I mean, I was on a very scrub set of tyres, and even though it felt all right, it didn't feel the best. So I think Hoon Corp always go for a little bit of a different strategies when it comes to the race car itself. So I wonder what he's going to try and do. Will he try and make this tyre last a little bit longer? Can he get himself any chance to go on a soft tyre? But speaking of soft tyre running, we're going to see Ando Scott look to go for a move on Lewis, going through the 90 on lap 5 of 23. Makes the move cleanly done. Lewis doesn't fight it. Slots back into P4. That's Ando up onto the podium spots there. So great run there for him. The top 3 on the soft tyres. HC Lewis is going to try and keep that car steady and try and get himself back into that slipstream and try and work with Ando Scott, but he's got a whole gaggle of cars there. We can see Nick Pfaff there trying to go around the outside. Is he going to go for an outside move to an inside move here at the bus stop? Let's see what happens. Who's going to come out on top? It is Nick Pfaff. Gets the position over Mick Hill. So great run there. And he's not done yet. He's going to go for a move on Lewis through the chute there. Get a little bit more momentum. A little bit of door banging there. Side paddle running. And side by side gets up into 4th place. Nick Pfaff, take a bow. 2 moves in a couple of corners there. Wow. What a drive from the Aston boy.
Buy one, get one free. Nick Pfaff, stunning move there on the exit of bus stop. And Lewis, who was the cork in the bottle, is suddenly finding himself being overtaken in rapid succession. It's not worked quite as well as what Scott Taylor did. He really held up the field for quite a number of laps. That said, Lewis has done it very, very well in amongst these soft drivers who are all very, very quick. So to keep that position, he's only dropped to P5 at the moment. Mick Hill will be rapidly on his tail, though. Very interesting. I get the feeling that if he is doing a Scott Taylor-esque move here, that it's kind of worked out okay as it is right now. But if he is going for that one stop, I think he might have stretched those tires. He has had a tendency to go full send on the tires and really take a lot of life out of them early on in the race, and he certainly would have had to do that when racing and keeping pace with the field as it is right now. So I get the feeling those mediums are now dropping off a bit of a cliff for him, and that will be interesting to see whether he can last out for a one-stop strategy. Bear in mind, as Nick, you pointed out earlier on in Lobby 1, you do not need to take a racing medium tire throughout this entire race, because the softs are the mandatory. So you have to run the softs, but you know, there's a move there. Andrew Scott ahead of Matt Dernetti. So Andrew Scott, what a run through turn 1, the 90 he's got. Puts himself right into the position that you kind of don't want to be in, unfortunately, sometimes, down the straight. But Matt Dernetti probably won't have a lot to be able to say about that. Andrew Scott, sitting in the middle of the track, will hold on to P2 position quite nicely. And up ahead, as you just saw, got a little glimpse of it, Steph Franson out ahead, making his way through this long right-hander and down towards the chute. And Andrew Scott will now be trying to make his best way forward ahead towards Steph Franson. We'll see how that battle develops. I'm wondering if H.E. Lewis has maybe mucked up the strategy just a little bit here, but he certainly held up these 5, that's for sure. It allowed Steph Franson to get a really, really good run away from things, but has he compromised his own race in doing so? Only time will tell.
We do have to look back what we saw in Lobby 1. We did see Scott Taylor start on those medium tyres, and look what happened in his race. He made that strategy work, and Lewis is actually hanging out with the front guys as well. Same as we saw with Scott Taylor. So I wouldn't rule out Lewis just yet. Yes, he's compromising his early pace here, but these soft tyres, they can go at any point, at any time of this race, and Lewis will definitely be able to capitalise. But so far, it looks like he's just holding himself up, and he's holding up Mick Hill and his teammate that is on the soft tyre, Rob Jacobs, right behind. So I wonder if he's trying to back up Mick Hill a little bit so he can give Rob Jacobs an opportunity to go for a move on car number 3. But we'll wait and see. Lap 6 of 23. As we go down the order there, we're going to go through these guys for the first time. It is Jason Oswald, the second street to track driver, in 8th place. So there's a very handy position there for Jason Oswald. And then we have Boris Blazanek for Wicked Awesome Racing in 9th place. Tony Griffin, the first of the Mad Turtle Racing drivers inside the top 10, with Andrew Ernst, his teammate, in 11th place. And every time I see a Mad Turtle, I just love those liveries. But I think it just has to go to show that the the liveries that we see with the Hassel One Motorsport guys. It's unstoppable. You can't touch it. I think the Mad Turtle always looks great, but I think what I do love is that Hassel One Motorsport livery that we are seeing here for season 3. They're both equally great and they both look awesome. As we see Brett Allen come into the pit lane. So I thought actually Mark Hasseltine wasn't here, but he actually is on track. So that was actually the only driver that did not make this race was Morgan Davey with a DNS.
Exactly right, yeah. So we've got Brett Allen here in the 555 car for War, currently in the pits. His teammate Isa Budsey sitting in P9 currently. Steph Franson still got that good lead out at the moment. That was a medium tyre there for Brett Allen. Only 7 laps on that. So that's an interesting way to do things, because if you're going to do a 7-lap stint, you might as well be on the soft, as I understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there we go. So we've got a little bit of a quick report there from Ando. Bit of damage there, just compromising strategy. But look at Nick Pfaff. He's gone for the move on Matt Donetti on the inside, going into the heel section. Beautiful move there. Runs it very deep there. So Matt Donetti takes back P3, but he got a good run on the toe leading up to the heel, and unfortunately just a little bit too eager on the brakes there and just missed his braking point. And Matt Donetti still holds on to P3, but Nick Pfaff is a man on a mission. He wants to get himself up towards the pointy end, and like I said, try and give Astor Racing some good points there. And very close when it comes to the pit entry. As we say, ladies and gentlemen, the pit entry here at Watkins Glen is not the prettiest by all means. It becomes very tricky to negotiate cars that are going a lot slower on the apex. And you have to remember, they are on the apex off the corner as well. So drivers going through there, they do have to be careful. It kind of reminds me of the pit entry going into Brands Hatch as well as the pit exit of Brands Hatch. So very compromised pit lanes that we see here in the world of motorsport.
Yeah, indeed. And I think it's time now that we've had 4 of our leaders jump into the pit. Steph Franson, Andrew Scott, Mick Hill, and Matt Donetti have all come to the pit on their soft tyres. A mix of fuel strategies as well going on. I think it's time to talk to Andrew Scott. Andrew, we've had 4 pit stops from the top drivers there. What can you tell us?
Yeah, they're definitely on 2 stops, obviously, and they're just going to run softs for the whole race. And I can tell you now, the Flying Dutchman, he's been jumped in the pits because he needed a splash of fuel, whereas the 2 drivers ahead of him did not take fuel. So he's got a bit of a fuel advantage, but he's lost track position, folks.
Wow, okay, that's a big switch up. Yeah, so Mark Hasseltine obviously hasn't pitted, has come out in the middle of this fight between Andrew Scott and Steph Franson. Andrew Scott, you've taken the lead of this race in the 787 Mobile, and that's got to feel good at this stage of the race, and with the less fuel required. So Steph Franson, we know that he's the full send kind of guy. Ooh, on an outside move there on Mark Hasseltine. Very nicely done, but drops a couple of tyres off onto the grass on exit. We know that he likes to go full send, Steph Franson, so it's maybe that why he's used a bit of extra fuel, just trying to build that gap. Doesn't seem to have worked out for him.
Well, it looks like he's sitting. Sorry, Ando. I was going to say a 52.9 on the opening stint when we saw a 52.8 from Luke Stone at the end of the stint. So you can definitely tell a little bit faster on Steph Franson's side at the moment. He's going to try and really close up on that 787, but we'll go back to Ando Scott. Like we say, different strategies, different mindsets on the fuel. What are we going to see from the Flying Dutchman? What can he actually do? Does he really need to go full send, or does he save just a little bit more so he can get himself the upper hand on the 787?
Yeah, well, if he sits where he is now, he's got a 9-litre advantage in fuel. That's 3 or 4 seconds of refueling time. So if he can sit behind Ando now for this stint and maybe even get into his slip and enjoy that fuel saving that you get from being in slipstream, this could well put him in the box seat. So that little splash of fuel he took could be the difference here.
That could make this very, very spicy, especially if he does manage to get into the slipstream of the 787 car, because that'll save him just that little bit of extra fuel. Doesn't have to go completely full send down this long straight. He's in Sector 1 purple already. He's got the fastest lap, 52.984. Not quite as fast yet as what we saw with Luke Stone in Lobby 1. Interesting line through the bus stop. That was brave. Luckily, these Mazda 3s are pretty stable. If that was the TCR Season 2, he would have been bounced off the track. He's trying to get into the slip.
He's trying to get into the slip, folks. He's just trying all he can to get in there, and it's like a suction cup. Once you're there, it becomes easy. So if he can get in there within that 7/10 of Ando, he's really going to enjoy a huge advantage here after the second stop.
Absolutely, and the Flying Dutchman are living up to his nickname there. 4/10 purple on his personal best. So we saw a 52.8 from Luke Stone in Lobby 1. I think that's going to be absolutely demolished by the Flying Dutchman in the Hanson Banana for Street to Track, making his series debut here at MotorMotion E-Series for Season 3 of the Trak Racer TCR Cup. So it's great to see some new names join us in 2024. So, and also as well with Steph Franson there, 5/10 faster than his purple sector. It's going to be a very low 52 here. If he gets these corners right, might even be able to gain another 10th or two, but there's a car parked on the inside there that's going into the pit lane. That doesn't compromise them. That's Boris Blasinic coming into the pit lane for his first stop on the soft tyres on 34% of fuel there. It's going to be a low 52 for the Flying Dutchman. What a lap that was. That's a clutch lap that I've ever...
Yeah, that was very, very quick. 52.4, fastest lap we've seen so far in round 5. Don't think he's quite within slipstream range of Ando, so he'll have to put in another really good lap here. This will, of course, be costing him some tyres. We have seen him manage his tyres okay for the most part, but he certainly knows how to use them to the maximum. Andrew Scott, what kind of tyre usage are we seeing between these two in the fight for the lead right now?
Yeah, it's very even. Ando's got a slight tyre advantage, but obviously that huge, significant fuel disadvantage now. So the Dutchman now is in the slip. Can he stay there? That's the question. And I can also report, folks, the leader, HC Lewis, he's on the mediums. They're just about done. So I don't know if he's going to get the one-stopper done. He might have to switch strategies here too.
It's I don't know, like, and like I said, as I reported driving the car at Spa, the car felt very nice, but it felt very nice for that one lap pace. So it's something that Hooncorp is just missing in the setup with that car to get the race pace. So Lewis, even though he's on the medium tyre, as we saw with Scott Taylor, he got to 13 laps on his medium set. If we're going to see him pit at the end of lap 10 of 23, this could be a very, very long day for the Hooncorp driver in car 151. We know how quick he is in qualifying. We know he can have some good race pace when it is at his advantage. But there we go, the car veering right into the pit lane, very narrow entry. Try not to cut over onto that yellow line, otherwise you get the dreaded 3-second penalty here. And he comes into the pit lane, 31% of fuel in his tank, but on the medium tyre at the end of lap 10. I just don't know, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. What can Lewis do at the end of this? Can he get himself back inside the top 8? Can he have any resurgence to get himself onto the podium? I just don't think it's likely, but let us know where Lewis could finish at the end of this race. But it is Ando Scott leading the way ahead of the Dutchman. This is the battle that we have always wanted to see. It's been spicing up. It's been brewing here at MotorMotion E-Series to see these two on the track on the same tarmac. And we are seeing it here at Watkins Glen. Ando Scott leading the Flying Dutchman and Steph Franson, the championship leader in Season 3, with Mick Hill running a very good, strong P3 with Matt Donetti in 4th. Mark Hasseldine yet to make a pit stop, but we have seen now Nick Pfaff take that 5th place away from Mark Hasseldine on the exit of the 90, and Tony Griffin, Rob Jacobs inside the top 8. Wow, this is going to be a very spicy second stint here, George, between the top two.
Yeah, certainly is, and yeah, we're only just approaching half distance as well, so this is absolutely brilliant to see. Nick Pfaff on a flyer at the moment. That was a 53.0, still 0.6 of a second off the fastest lap in this race by Steph Franson, and I can't keep my eyes off this battle. It's so close, and whether or not these two will start fighting is another question as well. We know that Andrew Scott, we don't often see Andrew Scott doing a lot of defending in races. Usually he's the overtaker, so to see him in a position where he may be forced to do a bit of defending, we'll see the master at work with all the racecraft being brought out by both Andrew and Steph Franson, and you'd love to see it. This has been brewing for the last 4 rounds to see them both on the same bit of circuit, and we're going to see it in short order. Steph Franson has been sitting nicely within that slipstream distance, is going to be able to save some fuel. Don't know if he's going to actually push to get an overtake. At the moment, I think he wants to maybe drop back the pace just a little bit, save a bit of fuel, save a bit of tyres. Now that he's in the aero wake of Andrew Scott, he can kind of just chill there for the most part. He'll get a boost in speed anyway. Yeah, that was a slower lap of 53.1. Andrew Scott of 53.0. So still got some really consistent pace here. I mean, Andrew's so consistent on those lap times. You can see it all the way through his race so far. Nearly a moment though. That's a bit scary. Code Brown to the pit lane as the Hasseldine does come into the pits on his medium tyres on 5% fuel. Wow, he's really been thirsty.
Yeah, I don't think it was a code brown there for Steph Franson. I think it just maybe the moment if he actually got himself a penalty next to his name. We'll see if we can cut down to Steph Franson. No, he actually didn't. So he got away with it within the track limits there. That's what caught my eye a little bit. That he just ran a little bit wide. He veered the car back onto the racing track as quickly as he could because he thought that he was going to get himself a track limit penalty next to his name there, but he didn't. And yeah, 53.1 compared to those last couple of laps, 52.6, and then the fastest lap, 52.4. Ando said a 53 flat, so tires could be a big issue here. And he's now in the clutches of the 787. He is eating that dirty air. Coming off the 787 there. It's maybe not as strong as we see in the Group 4 machinery compared to what we see with GT3s, LMPs, GT500s where dirty air, and even Formula cars where dirty air has a huge effect, but you still feel it in Group 4 machinery, especially when you're in the wash of the car ahead of you. So that does kind of chew the tires pretty quickly. So we'll wait and see what the strategy is going to be for the Flying Dutchman to try and get anywhere, to try and take back that P1 that he took in that first stint.
Yeah,
Meanwhile,
he's definitely in conservation mode. Sorry, Franson. Yeah, he's switched into conservation mode. He's tucked in behind Ando's bumper now, and he's just trying to look after tyres and fuel. And I can tell you what, with these two cars here, the way they're driving, one track penalty will cost you the win here. So these guys are on the limit, and they're flirting with the track limits at every corner.
Oh, that's spicy. That is very spicy. Yeah, I mean, it sort of seemed like Steph Franson took his foot a little bit off the throttle, so to speak, with regards to how he was driving, and he's certainly quite happy to run in the slipstream. Meanwhile, the battle for P4, Matt Dernetti still holding on to P4 right now. Nick Pfaff still probably with a little bit of red mist, though I think it's probably clearing at this stage, going absolutely full ham. Another 53.0.
Identical lap.
It's identical lap. Lap 10 and lap 12, 53.024 to the thousandth of a second. Well, we talked about consistency a moment ago. That is real consistency, and he's going to try again down the outside line. I think he tried this on a different car earlier on. Does get it done. Great overspeed there from the 92 car, and done up into P4. He's flying.
Absolutely. We gave Luke Stone his honourable mention at Laguna Seca at turn 5, calling it Luke's corner, Luke's curve. I think the bus stop might need to be renamed the Pfaff chicane, because he's getting those moves done like absolute perfection around the outside and getting that confidence that he's got in the Asta 92 to get that position and get that track position. He's up into P4. He's going to start closing in on Mick Hill when it comes into that second stint of tyres, whether they're going to be soft tyres, whether it's going to be mediums. You know, I think in this last stint, you have to go full send. And I think in Nick Pfaff's case, we have I don't want to really call them the number two drivers, because we know Mick Hill's a very capable driver. We know he can be as strong as Ando on his day, and we know Nick Pfaff can be as strong as Morgan Davey. But these guys are going to be battling it out potentially for the last step on the podium here, and we can't wait to see what happens here. But what we're seeing here as well, Tony Griffin, lap 13 of 23. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, he's yet to make a pit stop. I don't think he has. Actually, we're looking at a 2:17, so it looks like he has made a pit stop. But I wonder if he hasn't put any fuel in his car. But if it's actually genuine track position, the Mad Turtle driver is doing a really good job here. If he can hold on to P6, he's ahead of Rob Jacobs there. And then we have Jason Oswald 8th, and then Andrew Anderson Mavalence in 9th place. But big surprise here, ladies and gentlemen. We don't see Lewis Atkinson's name inside the top 9. So where is Lewis Atkinson when he came out of the pit lane? He's now 9th place ahead of Andrew N. So he was sitting in the top 10, but he's now in 9th place. And Ando Scott with a 52.8. He's definitely showing that he's on the soft tyres. A 53.6 after that overtake that he had to do on Andrew Ants. How's his tyre wear? I mean, we know Lewis is a very aggressive driver, but is he chewing up his tyres too early in this stint?
Yeah, he's got fresh softs and maybe enough fuel to get to the end of the race, but I don't think he's got the tyres for it. So he's going to have to pit again, I do suspect.
Yeah, there you go. So the strategy's just not working out, but he might go for a soft stint at the end of this race. So we'll find out to see how close he can get. It has a little bit of a moment there through the Pfaff chicane. Unfortunately, just losing a little bit of time there to Jason Oswald. But the battle pack remains here on lap 14 of 23. Less than 10 laps to go. These two are still battling it out there. We can see Steph Franson tickling the edge of the track limits there on the heel of this Watkins Glen circuit. and we are getting close to that pit window, ladies and gentlemen. We need to see what these guys are going to be like on the fuel numbers. Has Ando saved enough fuel? Has the Flying Dutchman managed to save a little bit more, now staying behind the 787, maybe learning a few lines, maybe learning a few tricks from the old maestro of the TCR Cup? We'll have to wait and see.
We certainly will. It's going to be an interesting strategy battle towards the end. It will come down, as you exactly said there, both of you, either going to be who picks up a penalty first. So it's going to come down to mistakes. It's going to come down to how much fuel you can save. Right now, Steph Franson is in the right position in a slipstream, gets to save a bit more fuel. We see Tony Griffin now coming in for his pit stops on 6% of fuel, so he'll fuel up, go onto another pair of softs, I suspect, and then go and send it for the remaining 8 laps of this race. But yeah, Steph Franson certainly seems to be in the right position right now with regards to winning on the strategy side of things, but we know that it's one thing to be in a slipstream and to catch up with another driver. It's a whole other thing to overtake. And the question is, will Andrew Scott be able to manage this race at the top to keep Steph Franson from taking home yet another victory in this season? That's going to be absolutely key and critical for us to watch. I think we'll be seeing them come into the pits either this lap or the next lap. Andrew Scott, can you give us an update from the pit lane on this mega battle that's happening at the top, strategy battle?
Yeah, Ando's probably going to be in this lap, folks. He's on vapors, and that'll leave him 8 laps to do to finish off the race. And Banana, he can get one more lap out. So it'll be interesting to see if he chooses to mirror what I do or to go for the overcut. So let's see this one play out. If he does pit at the same time, he's going to jump Ando in the pits, that's for sure, because he's got a 9-litre fuel advantage still.
Oh, wow. And that with the refueling rate equates to about 3 seconds on track. So it will be not as significant, but it'll certainly be enough of a distance that'll put Andrew Scott, of course, out of that slipstream range. And Andrew Scott does come in. Does Steph Franson come in? Yes, he does. So both of them going at the same time. So Steph could have stayed out a little bit longer, but given that he only has to do a little bit less refueling, Andrew Scott, 0%. Talk about timing it to the absolute vapor. It's the last whiff of gasoline in the car as he entered the pits. And now here we see the refueling time.
There you go.
Steph Franson, yeah, I mean, look at that. He's got a huge fuel advantage. He'll be out of the pits before Andrew. It's going to be up to Andrew Scott to fight back against Steph Franson, because we're about to see it. He's going to pull out the pit lane in just a second. Nearly there. There we go. Andrew Scott's still in the pit lane, and Steph Franson will take the lead of this race. He'll be out of the pits first. Andrew Scott now coming out too. The gap might not be quite as big as what we thought before, about 5% difference in fuel right now, but nonetheless, Steph Franson will be leading this race as he exits the pit provisionally, because he's going to have H.C. Lewis in front of him. Rob Jacobs, Matthew Hatton, and Nick Pfaff still yet to do what we think is going to be their final pit stop, but there is Steph Franson, and there is Andrew Scott, and does look like a 3-second difference on track, doesn't it, Nick?
Yeah, exactly. And also what we saw there, interesting enough, in the pit lane, he's put a little bit more fuel in, whether the numbers are right or wrong, but he's got that little bit of upper hand, so he can use a little bit more HP, a little bit more horsepower in that Mazda 3. He can go take a little bit more risks when it comes to the fuel numbers. He can really push this car a little bit more. Whether the Flying Dutchman in Steph Franson has got maybe just enough to get him over the line and take the victory this time out, but we'll find out very shortly. Ando's got a lot of work to do whilst taking the lead in that second stint in the race. The Flying Dutchman has got him on strategy, and when this is something that we don't hear often, ladies and gentlemen, we have the strategies going the opposite way, and it's going towards the street to track driver on lap 16 and 23, the provisional leader of this race.
That's exactly right. It's a very interesting scenario. Of course, we have to remember that Andrew Scott did have to make his way through about 3 or 4 cars at the beginning of this race, and Lewis Atkinson holding them up as well definitely played into this. I think if that had not been the case, say in a hypothetical situation where Andrew Scott was on P2, I get the feeling that Andrew Scott may still be ahead in this race right now. But nonetheless, we see Nick Pfaff and Matt Dernedy coming into the pits. They're on low fuel, as does Rob Jacobs. I suspect H.E. Lewis will be in as well. Yes, he is. So the top 4 do pit. Now we see Franson take the position that he is fundamentally in, which is P1 in this race, and there is now only 6 laps to go. I can't do math. I've never been able to do math on stream. That run continues, so at least I'm consistent in something, and Andrew Scott will continue his charge after him.
Yeah, and what we saw in the pit lane as well there, Lewis obviously has a big fuel number compared to the others, but he looks like he might be throwing on another set of soft tyres from what we're seeing in the 151. So he's going to try and go full send and try and gain back the time that he's got. But Nick Pfaff has gone the overcut of the century. He's gone ahead of Mick Hill. He's up into P3. We did not see this coming. We knew he has the pace. Oh, sorry, we know he's got the pace over Mick Hill and all the others behind him, but I did not see this coming whatsoever. Nick Pfaff, third place. He's been showing his performance on track, overtaking cars left, right, front, and centre. But the strategy that's gone for the Astor team in car 92 is ahead of Mick Hill and is on the podium position, and that is a genuine podium position for the Astor team in Nick Pfaff.
Yeah, he's gone from P3 at the start down to P8, P7. Been stuck behind a number of drivers that he's faster than for basically the entire race. Now found his way up through good strategy execution and fast driving to P3 once again. So he's back where he belongs, so to speak. But of course, you know, Matt Dernedy, he's kind of been the one who's lost out most in terms of qualifying positions. He was P2 on the grid, as I remember it. No, that might be wrong.
No, that was Lewis. No, Lewis
was the one, yeah. So Lewis has lost out the most. Second of that will be Matt Dernedy. He's gone from P3 down to P5. Lewis, it's not working out for him today, unfortunately.
No, absolutely not. So we'll cut over to Ando Scott as we go, as we see the onboard of Matt Dernedy in that Hassel 1 Motorsport entry. But what can we tell from Lewis Atkinson? Obviously, he had a little bit more fuel in his car. Did they put on another set of soft tyres on that 151?
Yeah, he's definitely doing soft at the end here. So he's elected to do the two-stop strategy, but for some unknown reason chose to start the race on medium. So maybe he didn't have the confidence that he could do 8 laps on softs, but he's in full-on sprint mode now to the end because he's got fresh softs, a good amount of fuel. So let's see what he can do to claw back maybe a spot or two. But I can tell you up at the front, guys, an interesting scenario is unfolding because the Flying Dutchman, he had to under-fuel in order to jump Ando. So he's now in fuel save mode. And I think Ando's making some inroads on him here. So this race for the win is not over yet either, folks.
So
I like to hear that.
Flat. Yeah, 53 flat we saw from Ando Scott, and then we saw a 53.1 from Steph Franzen. So they're still matching each other in pace there. So there's not much gain, there's not much loss amongst these two drivers that we're seeing here on track. The two lead drivers that we will call it here at the Trak Racer TCR Cup. These guys have definitely been punching above their weights and showing the others how it's done throughout the years to come. But it has become Steph Franzen's time to shine here at MotorMotion E Series, and he's leading the man in 787 and Ando Scott and on track and on pace, lap 18 of 23. But the fuel number could be a concern at the end of it. We did see and that Me Cougar 787 put a little bit more fuel compared to Steph Franzen. I wonder if it was just more Steph Franzen just wanted to get the jump on Ando Scott and get that track position, George.
Yeah, well, track position does mean a lot out here. Then again, you've got big slipstream opportunities and things like that, so having the gap is super important, and especially if you can maintain it. Let's see what time it is across the line. It's a 53.3 for Andrew Scott. It's going to be a 53.1. So yeah, that fuel save for Steph Franzen is going to come into play, but given the gap at the moment, it's going to need to be a little bit more than that for Scott to make some real progress here against Steph Franzen, I think. But it is nice to know that that Steph Franzen is in fuel saving mode, because I want to see these two continue to battle out on track. I'd love to see some more defensive maneuvers. We almost saw it before, but Steph Franzen did the sensible thing and just decided to dial it down, save a bit more fuel. And that's what's given him the advantage here in this race, as opposed to making something out of it on track in terms of battling for position directly, which he absolutely could have done. Lewis with a 52.424. That is a very quick lap from the Hooncorp driver.
Pretty much matching Steph Franzen.
Oh, excuse me, we've had a little bit of an issue with our microphone there for Nick Pautasso, but yeah, that's very close to 424. And for Steph Franzen, that was a 52 point. I think it was a 4 as well, 469 I think it was. So there's only 0.04 of a second in it between those two. Lewis on an absolute flyer. Again, Lewis Atkinson, we know he's got the pace. It's just the strategy execution just doesn't seem to have been there for some of these races, unfortunately. So the medium tyre there, I'm not you know, I can understand why we might have seen it out there, but it's not a mandatory tyre today.
Yeah, but we saw it with Scott Taylor as well. If we knew Lewis was going to do what Scott Taylor would have done, I mean,
Oh, then it
it
makes
could
total
have been.
sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It would probably put him towards the pointy end of between Nick Pfaff and Mick Hill and disposable hero. But speaking about heroes and some good driving, P7 Tony Griffin starting outside the top 10. In this race, there's holding on very nicely there. He's got himself a good buffer over Boris Blasnik, and Rob Jacobs, unfortunately, just down the order a little bit, not keeping close to his teammate. We did see he come in, I think, with about 2% of fuel going into the final pit stop. He's right behind Boris Blasnik to try and get that move done on the war driver. But Tony Griffin could be the underachiever here when it comes to this race. They're getting inside the top 7 amongst a 12-man field. So it looks like we have had a retirement in this race here. We'll have to cut over to Ando Scott very short. We didn't get to see who that was, but look, Rob Jacobs going for the move at the 90 on lap 20 of 23. Oh, very close, breaking at the same point of time. Oh, that's going to be a definite track limit penalty there for Boris Blasnicki. I think he may have just got a little slight tap there and he's hit the wall there. So something's gone wrong with this car here. Maybe just a little bit of a steering component failure. It didn't look like the contact was big there, George, but maybe just got onto the marbles and just understeered the car wide into the arm coat.
Yeah, well, it's easy to do, especially once you run wide there. It looks like Soul Slayer, so I think that's Brett Allen. I believe, looks like he has been the one to drop out. That means Hasseldine and the number 16 car will be rounding out our grid right now with Andrew Enst sitting there in P11, Jason Oswald sitting in P10. This 2-second penalty is going to be pretty painful. Won't put him in range of Jason Oswald, though, at the moment. Who does take a little bit of grass into the bus stop chicane, or as we now know it, the... who did we decide it's known as that? The...
Pfaff chicane.
The Pfaff chicane. The Pfaff chicane. There we go. The Pfaff chicane. So just running a little bit wide on the exit of Pfaff chicane, or the Pfaff stop, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to have a think about that.
We got Stone Curve at Laguna Seca, and we got Pfaff chicane here at Watkins Glen. So we're going to go to Daytona very shortly. There's another bus stop there. I think that definitely reminds me of the bus stop there what we saw last time in season 2 when we saw, I think it was Lobby 2, it was the Colin Racing driver and Mitch Collin. I think he went for a full send around the outside in that race. I remember that very well. So maybe you might be able to call that Colin's chicane as well. We'll wait when we get to the time frame. But lap 21 of 23, it is still the Flying Dutchman that leads the way. Ando Scott 52.2 there next to his name, 53.8 on Nick Pfaff's time. Mick Hill 53.8 as well. But Matt Donetti looks like he's the one that could be challenging the Me Cougar driver and dispose, and no pun intended, disposable hero from P4. But the Hassel 1 driver is really, really close to that rear wing there. He's going to stick his nose and show the nose just to try and put off Mick Hill going into the chicane here. He doesn't look like it's going to be done there, but they're very close quarters as they come to the chute for the 21st time of 23. He's very close to the rear bumper of the number 3 there. So I wonder if maybe Mick Hill has not been able to get these tyres switched on in this stint. That's why he lost that position to Nick Pfaff from the overcut. But maybe just hasn't got the tyre pressures right in this final stint here. Matt Donetti very close to try and get that P4 away from the Me Cougar driver, and can cost some team points in the race for the team's championship.
Exactly right. So let's go to Andrew Scott. Mick Hill for Me Cougar going defensive up through the boot and towards the heel. Give us an update on exactly what's happening to his tyres. Looks like Matt Donetti won't get the move done here into the heel. Mick Hill, staunch defender. He's had psychological training from his team owner to make sure he can't get distracted by a driver pulling psychological tricks in the background. But Andrew Scott, how is Mick Hill doing? How is Matt Donetti doing as well?
Yeah, this is a dig-nog battle, folks. They're both pretty even, but Matt Donetti does, in fact, have a tyre advantage. So he's got enough fuel to the end and slightly better tyres. So he's really asking the question here of Disposable Hero, and it's been a really, really good battle so far. Really good clean driving and vigorous defending from Disposable Hero.
Absolutely right. Yeah, it's going to continue as well. 2 laps to go, so Matt Donetti is going to have to find a way past McHill, but we know McHill is incredibly good on the defensive drive, Nick. We've seen it in a number of seasons now. He continues to improve his driving etiquette, racecraft, skill, and strategy execution. Hasn't worked out versus Nick Pfaff, but we know how fast Pfaff is, and this could be the opportunity for Matt Donetti. Oh, a little bit of a bump draft there as well. Didn't really have anywhere to go, did he?
Yeah, not close enough, unfortunately, to stick a move there on Pfaff curve, Pfaff chicane. So he's not close enough there, but he looks like he's got a great exit on the chicane there, Kenny. He's going to stick underneath the rear wing. Just get the foot down a little bit earlier, son. Go around the outside that gets you to the inside line. He might have a sniff, though. Oh, he's going to go for it into the inside of the chute. Oh, a little pinch on the curve there. Mick Hill does a brilliant job trying to keep that P4 in his clutches there and help Cooke get those valuable points in the team championship, that which they are leading, and we'll get to that at the end of the broadcast, but it is still...
Oh, we've had another problem with the microphone as well, unfortunately. It's going to be another move here for Matt Donetti on the outside. Can he make this one stick, though? No, Mick Hill is so good on defending the middle of the road and the apex that he just can't find a way through, can Matt. So he's going to have a try again, but this battle does continue. Nick, you were saying. Still looks like we've got a small issue on the microphone there for Nick. We'll come back to him in short order.
Getting at the front, George.
And we've got to go up to the front because we've been told that there is something happening, and it is getting rather close between these two. So, Andrew, give us an update. Yep.
Yeah, Ando has used all his fuel, so the fuel advantage he did have by overfueling there has been used up. And the tyre advantage is there. He's got a slight tyre advantage over the Flying Dutchman, but the Flying Dutchman has just driven this stint perfectly, having to save fuel and maintain the gap. He kept Ando at bay, so it looks like he might have done just enough here on the final lap.
Wow, and he's still taking some very brave lines through Pfaff chicane as well. And I completely agree. I mean, Franson has driven incredibly well. Andrew, you did have a chance. Unfortunately, it's the last lap now, so just not enough laps left in the race. Meanwhile, the battle for P4 continues, and I can't take my eyes off this. This is absolutely great racing by these two.
Mick Hill still trying to defend through. We thought Lewis could have a little stiff there if these guys battle too much. He's going to try and go for the outside lane. Mick Hill goes defensive. Can he go for a bit of a Daniel Ricciardo switchback and fake him into the inside? No, defensive move there by Mick Hill. Matt Donetti's not going to give up, ladies and gentlemen. Will we see that Hassel 1 Motorsport get P4? Will we see Mick Hill hold on? They both run wide going into the toe, but it's going to help them on the exit. A little bit cleaner there on Matt Donetti's side, so he's got a couple of more chances to try and get back into P4. We'll keep an eye on that battle pack very shortly there, but Steph Franson, the Flying Dutchman, this man has been on a roll here at MotorMotion E-Series for Season 3 of the Trak Racer TCR Cup, taking this advantage away from Ando Scott and taking the victory as he comes around the final corner. It is going to be the Flying Dutchman and Steph Franson street to track, taking the victory for round 5 of the Trak Racer TCR Cup for Season 3.
Oh,
Ando Scott is out of fuel. He's out of fuel. Did not play the numbers right. It is checkmate for the Flying Dutchman and takes the victory off Ando Scott. Nick Pfaff will take P3, and it is going to be Mick Hill that has P4, the bragging rights there. We see Matt Donetti also running out of fuel as well, so the battle for that 4th position goes to Mick Hill, and valuable points for that team championship. Matt Donetti in 5th, Lewis in 6th place, Tony Griffin. A round of applause to the Matt Turtle driver to get P7, and Rob Jacobs rounding up the top 8. But what a drive that was from Steph Franson, outgunning and out-strategizing the master in Ando Scott in that race.
Oh, too right. It was a fantastic race there overall throughout the entire 23 laps that we've just seen at Watkins Glen for Lobby 2. Stunning work. Lovely to see the top teams go at it. And unfortunately for Andrew Scott, not able to pip. Steph Franson, the Flying Dutchman, continues his run of win streaks in this season, which puts him in a position to really secure the Drivers' Championship as we've now well past the halfway mark of the season. So Steph Franson takes the victory there. Andrew Scott P2. Nick Pfaff takes the final podium position there in P3. 46 points going home to himself and some team points there for Asta Racing after Morgan Davey, not able to compete in this race, had a unfortunate car issue at the beginning, just after qualifying, just before the race, couldn't get out on track. Really unlucky there for Asta Racing, but what a fight back from Nick Pfaff. Mick Hill, with that battle with Matt Dernetti, that was something very, very special at the end of this race. What a pleasure to watch those two going at it. I'm sure we're going to see more from them as we head towards our 90-minute enduro round at Daytona next week. Then, of course, Lewis Atkinson went from, unfortunately, quite high up the grid to P6, still a solid finish. Tony Griffin, as you just said there, Nick, fantastic work from the Mad Turtle Racer to bring home a P7. Looking down the last few drivers in the grid here, Rob Jacobs for Hooncourt P8, Jason Oswald P9, Mark Hasseldine, your last three in the top 10. Then Andrew Enks, Boris Blazenek, obviously having a bit of an issue at the end there, drops to the bottom of the podium, of the grid, unfortunately, in P12 with 2 DNFs this round. Brett Allen, unfortunately for Ward, not able to continue in this race, and Morgan Davey, as we said earlier, not able to even get onto the starting grid. Gentlemen, let's talk driver of the day in what was an incredible race. Give us your highlights, give us your thoughts and chat. Please let us know as well. We need those votes in on chat to let us know who your honourable mention is, who your driver of the day is, and who the favourite battle was today at Watkins Glen for Lobby 2. Nick, let's go to you.
Well, I think I've got a couple of highlights in all of these races. I think the biggest highlight was Steph Francis versus Ando Scott. I think that was a battle that we've all wanted to see, ladies and gentlemen, in Season 3 of the MotorMotion Trak Racer TCR Cup. I think that's definitely one of the biggest highlights that we wanted to see throughout this. To see what these two could do. We saw very closely at Laguna Seca what their finishing times were. At the end of it, we all put them in one lobby. You know, Ando Scott would have won that race. Steph Francis would have just finished about 5 seconds behind him. But you know, when you put the two of them on track, that's where the result is. And Steph Francis took that victory just ahead of Ando Scott. But unfortunately, with Ando Scott using a little bit too much fuel in those final stints and coughing his way through the final couple of corners there, as he is at the moment in real life. So bit of a mirroring effect there that you've got for Ando Scott there. But as well, we do have Nick Pfaff putting on a great show of overtaking and some great strategy minds as well to get the jump over Mick Hill in P3. So I don't know, driver of the day is going to be very hard for me. I mean, I'll give an honourable mention to the top three, both Steph Francis and Ando Scott and Nick Pfaff, but I'm going to have to go for a bit of an underdog here. I'm going to give it to Tony Griffin for Mad Turtle Racing. I've been keeping my eye on this man throughout this whole race on the secondary cameras, and this guy has been doing so well. Outgunned the best of the rest there. Well, we can call the best of the rest because we know Street to Track, Me Cougar, Hooncorp, and the likes of Asta Racing are the front runners, but Mad Turtle Racing showing their colours and showing their pace with Tony Griffin behind the wheel, and what a great race that was for the man. Kept it clean, no mistakes, P7 next to his name, and his best finish to date here at MotorMotion. And my drive for the day will go to the 62 in Tony Griffin.
Excellent stuff. So one vote there for Tony Griffin. I think now time to hear from Andrew Scott. Give us your driver of the day, some highlights, and please, we want to hear from you, mate. We want to hear what's happened in P2 slot there for yourself. Give us a rundown, Andrew Scott.
Yeah, I'm not happy. A bit annoyed with myself for my drive today, but honourable mentions definitely Tony Griffin for Mad Turtle Racing, a PB result for him there. Mick Hill and Matt Dernetti, great battling, really clean driving. Very good mention to them. Also Nick Pfaff, what a comeback drive after getting a terrible start and then suffering a bit of the red mist there in the first stint, but he made it work and a great comeback there. But my driver of the day, folks, and this is out there, it's going to go to Steph Francis, because A, it's not often that you can have the wool over the Me Cougar cars, and B, he did a 51.9 in quali.
Oh, wow.
My God. So that my driver of the day goes to Steph Francis for his quali lap. I am in awe.
Wow. There we go. You've heard it from the GOAT himself, Andrew Scott, giving Steph Francis all the praise that you possibly can from the maestro himself. Steph Francis, a 51.9. That man has got pace. He's got it every track, every circuit. He has nailed it with this Mazda 3 Group 4 car. It's stunning to see a driver come in and be so dominant.
I wonder if Max Verstappen is his team engineer in that case.
Quite possibly.
I think he is Max Verstappen.
yeah, that's right. He's just under a guise. He's got a persona on, and he's hiding behind the name of Stef Frantzen. It might be an anagram of Max Verstappen, who knows?
Yeah, spell it out.
Yeah, quite literally. So nonetheless, that's a vote there for Tony Griffin, a vote for Stef Frantzen. So my driver of the day today will potentially determine this, although I'm also thinking a little bit left field, but after hearing about a 51.9, well, it's hard not to give it to Stef Frantzen. I'm going to give him an honorable mention today to both Stef Frantzen, Andrew Scott, Mick Hill, and Donede as well, because that battle between Mick Hill and Donede was something very, very special to behold, and a pure strategy battle at the top between Frantzen and Scott. Absolutely beautiful to watch. My driver of the day, though, today is going to go to Nick Pfaff. My reasons are this. His teammate, who he usually is defending for, not in the race. So he, instead of being the Minister of Defense, he's going to be the Minister of Offense. And he certainly did that throughout this race. Every single lap, there was an overtake, more or less, for him. A really impressive drive. Obviously, the start was absolutely abysmal, but he recovered, and that's the more important thing. So my driver of the day going to go to Nick Pfaff today. So we've got 1 vote for Frantzen, 1 vote for Pfaff, and 1 vote for Griffin. So chat, it is all up to you. Let us know in chat who your driver of the day is, and we will calculate who is the final driver of the day for Lobby 2. Wow, what a round 5 we've had. Absolutely some of the most exciting racing so far this season. Been a brilliant round at Watkins Glen, but now we get to look forward to a 90-minute timed race, the second endurance race of this season, to round out the American leg of Season 3 at the Trak Racer TCR Cup. Daytona Road Course is our final destination in the American leg, and we will be using the full infield lap as well. No boring circle, oval, whatever you want to call it, racing here. We're going to go for the full infield, and it's going to be exciting to see what these Mazda 3 Group 4 cars have in store for us next week. The endurance round, of course, we focused on Lobby 1 last time we did an endurance round at the Nürburgring GP course. So this time, Lobby 2 will be our focus. We will be bringing you the full qualifying replay and the race replay to look forward to a couple of great hours of endurance racing next week for the Daytona race course. Race happening on the 25th of June. Broadcast will be the week after on the Monday, so look forward to that. Get it in your calendars, and on that note, on YouTube, give us a like, a subscribe, and turn on those notifications so that you know when the broadcast is coming up. Of course, you've been watching the Trak Racer TCR Cup here today, MotorMotion E-Series. Go and check us out on the website, www.motormotioneseries.wordpress.com. Join us on Facebook and get involved in the MotorMotion E-Series paddock. Lots of great people, great chats, whole bunch of awesome information in there, and of course, registrations for upcoming Series 2. We have also had a little bit of a hint from the MotorMotion E-Series admins, Nick and Andrew. You might have seen the post there. The GT3 Championship returning in 2024. How about that? We are looking forward to that very much. Some final comments from Nick and Andrew before we head out and round out our broadcast today. Nick, what an exciting day we've had, and with the announcement of GT3 champs coming up this year too, we are in for quite the rest of the 2024.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I wish I could have seen that because I've been typing dub, and I just keep getting errors on my computer, so I don't know what's going on there. So, but I get what you mean. It's all right. But we did see the sneak peek there, and my goodness, you know, it is the return of the pinnacle of the MotorMotion E-Series calendar yearly event that we see here. But even though we love GT3 racing, I still think to this day, the TCR Cup and the Trak Racer TCR Cup, mind you, I still think that this has to be the pinnacle of MotorMotion esports racing, because we see such great, we see some new talents come through. These guys are learning about tire saving, racecraft, learning about each other, and learning about themselves as well. So when they can bring that knowledge to the GT3 Championship, that's what gives them the upper hand. And with the announcement of the Player One GT3 Championship coming back, it's a very exciting exciting way to end the 2024 calendar year with the GT3 making a return at MotorMotion E-Series. But to round up here, Watkins Glen, both lobbies had very different strategies there. We saw Lobby 1, the one-stop strategy with Scott Taylor taking that to absolute perfection, just ahead of Jeremy Crow and Mark Pacheco. And then we saw the battle of the ages, Stef Frantzen versus Ando Scott, and it was the Flying Dutchman that took away that victory. So 2 different strategies in 2 lobbies. What could it be? What it could have played out if we put those 2 strategies in that one lobby? I think Stef Frantzen may have just won the day here at Watkins Glen. But if this is what's to come here, for the remainder of the season. Round 5 at Daytona, a 90-minute enduro. You know, a little bit trickier to get these corners right and to get that chicane, the bus stop right. It's going to come down to, I think it's going to come down to that chicane and the last sequence of the banking going on to the start-finish line of who wins the 90-minute enduro.
Exactly right. And thank you very much, Nick, for being in the commentary box with me as well. Some final words from Andrew Scott before I round out the stream, and then we will head off for the rest of the broadcast. So, Andrew.
Yeah, exciting to see that little teaser from the website about GT3. I'm really looking forward to that. If it comes to fruition, it'd be great to see another series of the Group 3. It'd be interesting to see who comes along. Myself, I'm a bit of a free agent at the moment in that category, so it'll be interesting to see where I end up. But also, yeah, today, I think Steph and I, it's 2-0 to Steph now. We've had 2 races together. He beat me in the wet at Nürburgring, and he's beaten me fair and square today in the dry at Watkins Glen. So the next round, which is going to be the enduro round, there might be a bit of scope there for the Me Cougars to come back with strategy in that one. So that will be riveting viewing once again next round as well.
Absolutely. Big thank you to both Nick Pautasso in the commentary box and Andrew Scott giving us all our analytics from the pit lane reporting booth as well, which has been the commentary box today. Big thank you to you both. Pleasure as always being in the commentary box. Thank you for everyone being in chat as well. I hope you've enjoyed round 5 today at Watkins Glen. A little bit of a typo on screen at the moment. It is actually round 6 for Daytona Road Course, so we apologize for that. Nonetheless, we look forward to a 90-minute timed round next week. Join us once again at the MotorMotion E-Series YouTube channel for more broadcast and coverage. For now, we're going to say goodnight and goodbye as we head to the end of the broadcast. Thank you all so much. Have a fantastic rest of your evening. Have a fantastic rest of your week. And we'll see you at Daytona for the end of the American leg of Season 3.